University.
Great universities are about building a great community, a great set of faculty, great academic partners, and a great set of people backing the project. Plaksha has all three of them.
This university will provide a world-class interdisciplinary education in science and technology.
Look at the impact the internet and smartphone have had on our lives. The impact of AI and machine learning in times to come is likely to be transformational.
At the end of the day, we are all designing for human beings. We are developing technology for human beings. That is why we are incorporating liberal arts into the curriculum at Plaksha.
At one end, you're doing AI and ML, and then you're looking at ethics and working environment, human psychology.
I think the way we've envisaged Plaksha is it's all about solving for world challenges.
Plaksha is defining a new model of engineering education. The curriculum at Plaksha will involve students to learn new age technologies along with the humanities and social sciences. And all this while also imparting leadership ability and developing their emotional quotient to inspire them to take on big challenges.
Given that we can start from scratch, we pretty much have lots of degrees of freedom.
We are trying to reimagine it in every way possible. Reimagine it in what we teach, how we teach, who we will hire as faculty.
How excited we are to partner with Plaksha to really think about a new model of engineering education, which is grand challenge focused.
India is going to be at the forefront of engineering education innovation into the future, and in that space, Plaksha is going to play a really key role.
So some of the founders at Plaksha have been involved in building Ashoka University, which within a short span of time has become the torchbearer of a liberal arts education in India. Hopefully, Plaksha will do the same in technology.
I believe that India has world-class students. Our vision is to provide the opportunity to build technological solutions for the future. This is why I'm involved in this project, a university for the future.
want kids to develop the art of asking why, to develop that curiosity, and then through that fundamental knowledge, be able to build something real. That is the essence of engineering, and that is the essence of the YTS program.
Like drifting through memory, wake up in your crystal sky. We're floating just to feel.
It's very cool because we've never done this stuff. We've only done it in class before, on the board, but we're actually getting to do it. And some things are kind of tough because we're soldering for the first time, but it's still really fun.
I never thought I'd be able to see my own pulse by making a machine on my own. We learn everything about this at school, but we never actually see it. And doing that on our own, it's great.
What I really love about this program is that we brought together some very bright kids, some very creative kids with a lot of potential. But what's been exciting is just in a small way, over the course of 2 weeks, to see them start realizing their potential.
YTS curriculum was designed to provide a transformative experience to the kids.
I've loved every part of YTS. I kind of understand now that 55 excited kids who are here just for the love and pure love of science can actually change things and make a difference.
In general, the engineering education has not evolved enough with times. The attempt with Plaksha is to create a truly world-class, forward-looking university.
Great universities are about building a great community, a great set of faculty, great academic partners, and a great set of people backing the project. Plaksha has all three of them.
This university will provide a world-class interdisciplinary education.
We are all designing for human beings. We are developing technology for human beings. That is why we are incorporating liberal arts into the curriculum at Plaksha.
At one end, you're doing AI and ML, and then you're looking at ethics and working environment, human psychology.
I think the way we've envisaged Plaksha is it's all about solving for world challenges.
Plaksha is defining a new model of engineering education. The curriculum at Plaksha will involve students to learn new age technologies along with the humanities and social sciences. And all this while also imparting leadership ability and developing their emotional quotient to inspire them to take on big challenges.
Given that we can start from scratch, we pretty much have lots of degrees of freedom.
We are trying to reimagine it in every way possible. Reimagine it in what we teach, how we teach, who we will hire as faculty.
How excited we are to partner with Plaksha to really think about a new model of engineering education, which is grand challenge focused.
India is going to be at the forefront of engineering education innovation into the future, and in that space, Plaksha is going to play a really key role.
So some of the founders at Plaksha have been involved in building Ashoka University, which within a short span of time has become the torchbearer of a liberal arts education in India. Hopefully, Plaksha will do the same in technology.
I believe that India has world-class students. Our vision is to provide the opportunity to build technological solutions for the future. This is why I'm involved in this project, a university for the future.
want kids to develop the art of asking why, to develop that curiosity, and then through that fundamental knowledge, be able to build something real. That is the essence of engineering, and that is the essence of the YTS program.
Like drifting through all memory. Wake up in your crystal sky. We're floating just to feel.
It's very cool because we've never done this stuff. We've only done it in class before, on the board, but we're actually getting to do it. And some things are kind of tough because we're soldering for the first time, but it's still really fun.
I never thought I'd be able to see my own pulse by making a machine on my own. We learn everything about this at school, but we never actually see it. And doing that on our own, it's great.
What I really love about this program is that we brought together some very bright kids, some very creative kids with a lot of potential. But what's been exciting is just in a small way, over the course of 2 weeks.
Welcome to Infinity 2020, our final day.
Good evening and welcome to the last day of Infinity 2020. My name is Vineet Gupta. I'm a founder and trustee of the upcoming Plaksha University and also a founder and trustee of Ashoka University. It's been fun to host Infinity over the last days. We've had some very, very exciting conversations. And I think this is an apt launch and an apt starting to what Plaksha holds for all our students and educators. Plaksha University, as all of you know, is a collective philanthropy effort of 60 plus senior academics, business leaders, and technology entrepreneurs to build a top-notch university in science and technology in Chandigarh. Plaksha aims to bring in a new model of engineering education for India and the world, a new model that breaks the boundaries of engineering disciplines, a new model that inspires students to deal with big problems, and a new model that builds an ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship. We open in August 2021, 4 exciting undergraduate majors, which we will talk about towards the closing. We are also opening our admissions in a week's time. So I look forward. I know there are lots of students, lots of educators, lots of parents in the audience. Please do explore Plaksha and what we have to offer. Plaksha doesn't belong to one person, one individual. It is a collective effort of academics, entrepreneurs, and business leaders. Infinity 2020, we are today on our last track, Stories Which Inspire. We started on Friday with talking about the future of technology education, what engineering education should look like. Then on Saturday morning, we spoke about Tinker, Create, Solve, using technology to solve problems. Yesterday evening, we showcased tech leaders for tomorrow. We had some outstanding students showcasing projects. We also had some outstanding entrepreneurs, speaking about the opportunities that exist around us. Today, we bring stories which inspire, stories of institution builders, stories of young entrepreneurs, stories of change makers. And in our first session that we have today, Natasha, if you could also change the slide and show the agenda. Yeah. So we kick off with a fireside chat with Kiran Beer, whom I'll just introduce. Then we have two of India's iconic entrepreneurs, Dipinder Goyal, who is the founder of Zomato, and Yashish, who founded Policy Bazaar. We have another panel on inclusion, innovation, and technology at 6:25. Then we have a very exciting student, Aryan, and I'm not really going to spill the beans, do hear him. And then we close with Sonam Wangchuk, whom probably most of you know. Sonam is a change maker, and he's using innovative technologies and problem solving to transform the region of Ladakh. But to get started, it is my pleasure to introduce Kiran B. Sethi, who is the founder of Riverside School and founder of Design for Change, a passionate educator, social entrepreneur, education reformer, designer, TED speaker. No amount of words can describe the impact Kiran has had on students. She started the DFC movement to encourage youth volunteerism, which has since spread to more than 300,000 children in 35 countries. Kiran, we are delighted that you could spare time and be with us here today. In conversation with Kiran will be Ashish Gupta, my co-founder and trustee at both Plaksha University and Ashoka University. Ashish is an alumnus of IIT Delhi and Carnegie Mellon University. He built eValueServe, perhaps one of India's first knowledge process outsourcing companies. He's now building a new company, Binori Knowledge Solutions, in the same space. The whole idea of bringing in design into technology education is a big theme and mission for Plaksha, and no one better to talk about it than Kiran. So over to you, Ashish, to take the conversation forward. Thank you and welcome.
Thanks, Vineet.
Thank you so much, Vineet. Kiran, good evening. It's indeed a pleasure and an honor to be talking to you. I think we're going to have a fascinating 30 odd minutes of a conversation around your journey and how you have sort of created this whole platform, the DFC thinking, and what impact it has had. So thank you so much for attending our conference. As a starting point, Kiran, it would be lovely for our audience to hear about your journey. Just very quickly, I was reading about your background. You got inspired by your sister, and then you went to NID, but from there you became a social entrepreneur. So how did that pan out?
I wanted to just correct the data since Vineet was just sharing about scale. We've actually touched 3 million children in 70 countries. So since, I don't know what that did, but I think, when I was looking at your video of Plaksha University and seeing that wonderful space, etc. And I was just reminded of NID. When I remember walking into NID, God, this was in 1982, I think. And I remember breathing for the first time. And I say that, and I'll say why I mentioned that. I think when a student or a learner encounters learning that is deeply personal and that triggers a personal connect, I think you understand what it should feel like and what it should sound like. So I think because of that experience of walking into NIT, my father actually was one of the first machine tool designers of India, first batch of IIT Kharagpur and gold medal.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
So I think design was always there. Then, of course, went to a very traditional school. But I think I was always very lucky to have the space to ask why not and what if, right from my beginning. So I think that was such a natural mindset that, kisne kaha yaar? Why not? Who said, So I think that natural, freedom to formulate a kind of point of view and then subsequently take responsibility for that. It's not just the random idea of having an opinion. I think that's the lowest form of human contribution. I think if you can assume the responsibility for it then you start making change. So I had that opportunity. Then I remember going to NID, and oh my God, I still remember that first day I walked in, and I remember sitting in the lawns with having a cup of chai in a circle. Everything that was anti-learning when you come from a traditional school, with a faculty member who didn't seem to think that hierarchy was the reason that they will have a relationship with you. It was not about hierarchy. It was that leaning in. And I remember he leaned in to look at each of us and listen to our story. I cannot tell you how amazing that felt. And I was thinking, shit, man, I got that when I was 17 years old. What a pity, right? And 17 years of my life went through without really understanding what that magic of learning might look like.
And they took you without you finishing your 12th, I heard.
I'm extremely, uneducated. Yes, I remember I was in my 11th doing, and I wanted to be a doctor, by the way. I was unfortunately good in studies, and at that time, you either became a doctor or an engineer. So I was thinking, yes, I'm going to become a doctor. And I walked into the interview, and I don't know, I just fell in love. I think they took me in thinking that I would be okay. And yeah, so I got into the design field, and I think that finally shaped everything subsequently from that. So when I became a mom, again, I keep saying I fell in love with my son, and I looked at him and said, "Beta, life will know you," that grand, mother and son moment. And so when he went to school, very early, I realized, my God, how schools reward compliance. If you can keep quiet, you are a good student. I mean, that's the pretty downright information we give all our children. Okay, and we garb it under this idea of respect. If you are respectful, you should be quiet and you should listen. I mean, that's the glorious understanding of learning. And so when he was in grade 1, and I put him in at 3 months, I tell you, in 3 months, when I went to meet his teacher, she kind of looked at me and said, "What is his roll number?" She didn't even know my son's name. And I said, what is this? Yeah, so many of our children go through life without even a name, without even a story and identity. Well, so 2 things happened at that day. I remember reacting as a mother and saying, how is this possible? And what is this nonsense? But I think I responded as a designer. And I think that's really the distinction. Sure. I have seen too many of us blame, complain, and say, "Ye to hota hi rehta hai. What can one person do? This is the government's job." And we justify the lack of action by virtue of our helplessness. And we say, "Ye to rehta hai." I mean, I turned out all right. No, my son will turn out all right. So I think I didn't have that frame, and I responded as a designer thinking, yeah, there has to be a better way. And so I keep saying, you are who you've been waiting for. Nobody else is going to come and change your life. So I believe that day when I took him out of school, and I called up Geet, my husband, I said, "Geetu, I'm taking him out of school, I'm starting." By then he knew I was a little mad. So he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know. But I think there has to be a better way." And
that would have been the starting point of DFC then, right? In some sense. And so if I may ask you 2 things. One, what were your major design principles for DFC, for Design for Change? What were the building blocks? And also from a social entrepreneurship perspective, what do you think? What do you think is the importance of a personal experience for you to become a social entrepreneur? Well, because in your case, it was really this personal experience which made you start this, right?
Well, the personal experience gives you stamina. It's as simple as that. If it is not personal, you're not going to wake up every day. Otherwise, you'll always, when it's not personal, you have end goals, you have exit plans. Well, if it's personal, there are no exit plans. This is it, boss. Unfortunately, there are too many startups who already start with an exit plan. I will make this money, I will get venture capitalists, I exiting. So, and therefore I feel there's an idea diarrhea in the world. We've got too many ideas. And I think that that's the greatest issue that we deal with. So I believe if it's not personal, and if it doesn't wake you up every single day, you are going to lose the stamina to stay with it long enough to make some measure of dents and space and shift in that space that you've taken. So I think it must be personal, but don't take it personally. There's a big difference there.
Yes.
It must be personal, but don't take it personally. It's not about you. It's not a self-congratulatory idea. It's not an idea of saying I'm a social entrepreneur and all of that stuff. So none of that. So I feel it must have a deeply, like I remember my friend Anshu of Goonj who started, he said, Kida hona chahiye. There should be a Kida in your mind. And all of us should find that Kida who makes us slightly uncomfortable every single day. Not too much, because then you get weary with the fatigue of it, but just enough to wake you up every morning to say, I have to make that road a little better. So that's why it needs to be a personal story. Other than that, like when you said Design for Change was born out of Riverside School, right? Riverside School first came. And the idea of listening and designing, because I didn't come from education, so I had to learn everything ground up. And the greatest teachers were my children. I started, in fact, when my oldest grade was just 6-year-olds. And that's the beauty what I realized. 6-year-olds are whole people. They are complete people. They might be tiny, but they're complete people. And so those filters about gender, age, and demographics completely, got removed. So I think that was the power of understanding the I can spirit when you listen to children. That eventually allowed me to work the design process and demystified it, because till then design thinking was always thought of to be in the ideas of the world or the NIDs of the world. And here our children are natural design thinkers, right? They need to start with empathy, and then they have an adult who listens. I think too much of education about is instructing people and directing them and telling them what to do or what to change. The moment you listen and you give that trust in that space, magic happens. I keep saying this, in the first 2 years of our child's life on the planet, they say, look at me, mama. I can from crawling to sitting to standing to laughing to thinking in the first 2 years, Ashish.
Right.
They make the most remarkable things. And then what do? We send them to school. And then for the next 15 years, we tell them, keep quiet, listen to me. And that is where the irony is. So I think Design for Change was born out of the idea that every child they have the potential to have that self-belief. And then subsequently, Design for Change was launched in 2009. And then today we're in 70 countries. Yeah, so
right.
Those are,
right. So, Geet had come over home in Gurgaon about 5-6 years back. And he was, I think you were at Harvard also, right? For some course or so. He mentioned one thing to me, which has stuck with me. And he said, look, Kiran always says that excellence is scale, right? So how have you used this notion of excellence at scale? Is scale, because obviously you have scaled this up big time, so how have you done this?
Well, there are two notions. One is excellence as scale and one is numbers as scale. We often think of scale as numbers. We think, jitna bhi bada ho sake, then that's the whole purpose, right? But excellence, I'm sure Plaksha will turn out to be that idea of excellence, changing the narrative of the conversation in your domain. That's scale. The very fact that Riverside was able to influence the idea of what schooling could look like and feel like and sound like, that's also scale. Suddenly there were more schools that were mimicking what we were doing, and there were more people wanting to kind of understand how we did what we did. And suddenly, because you went very deep and you really focused on this on one vertical, you're able to change the narrative in that space. And I think that's scale. I mean, look at the one Harvard and the one Stanford, etc. Like Ashoka is now creating that space. Eventually, it will offer the opportunity that it's possible to many more people who want to start, say, liberal arts colleges. So what you do is you suddenly give the vision of it's possible. And you start making it look, and I think sometimes excellence makes it look so simple. And that's the little dodgy part, right? Somebody said, I'm also Sachin Tendulkar. Everybody wants to become that. But the point that he offers you that it's possible, the point that excellence offers you that it's possible is really the idea of scale again. So try to do both is what I keep saying.
Right. So what has been the one big challenge that you can say that was the biggest thing in this journey, And linked to that, what was one of the biggest failures that you learned a lot from?
If you know anything about Geet Sethi, you realize that there is failure and success are very social construct. It has nothing to do with you. So I'm not a fan of failure. I don't think it's a language that either we must tell our children or think for ourselves. I think it's only about choices and responsibility. If you have an iterative sort of journey, right? The feedback mechanism is so useful to taking choices to refine whatever you do. In education, at least in school, we never give our children the opportunity to iterate, right? We give them a report card at the end of whatever and say, this is it. Either you've got the mark or not. And there is no conversation on iteration or refinement. So I think for me, coming from the design mindset, for me, it was always about choice. You either take a choice because you understand the user and change and iterate and prototype, and then it's not failure. It just is a choice you've taken, right? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So it might sound flip, but I don't think it's failure. It is responsibility for the choices you take. And then you're able to then define the next step by saying, am I going to take better choices now? Because I'm able to either get the feedback at the right time, I'm able to listen to it, I get it from the right spaces. So all I've learned is to be very brutal with the prototyping process. I go to the best in the field. I ask them to be really kind of honest about the feedback mechanism, and I iterate very quickly. I have a huge bias to prototyping. I do that really quick, and then I'm able to then do the adjustment into the iteration. So failure. So it's not about failure anymore, right? It's just an iterative journey. You just get better on that iteration. Challenges, yes. Yes. I mean, yes. I mean, why not? I've had epic challenges. I mean, you name it and I've had them all. But I think what I realized that to be able to overcome that, you really need to have your own lighthouses and role models. For me, I'm a huge sort of... I'm deeply inspired by Gandhiji, and I have his cutouts all over the school, and it allows me to pause and look at my own challenges and perspective and say, kya yaar, only 6 months and I'm getting tired. What? Yeah. He did it for 40 years. Yeah. I mean, so it gives you perspective. And then the 3 things I really take from him is a sense of humor. You got to have it in this journey that you're in. That's why I said, it's not about you. Retain your sense of humor, be completely shameless. Again, it's not about you, so no ego, shigo and all of this. And then have the stamina. It has to be a personal pursuit. So I think if I've got those 3 S's guiding me, I'm totally shameless when my kids are concerned. If it's kids, I'm not going to be diplomatic, polite, or subtle about it. I'm going to go out there and be a champion. I have to retain the sense of humor because this is a marathon race. I mean, it's a long story. It just continues. And the stamina. So yeah, challenges aate rehte hain. What's the point?
No, wonderful. So I guess one of the things which constantly inspires a social entrepreneur, and if I may call you that, although you might not necessarily want to be called that, is purpose, right? And there is obviously a higher purpose, which is which goes beyond yourself as an individual, right? So first question is, how important is that purpose? And second, again, from a practical point of view, how do you balance Saraswati and Lakshmi, if you understand what I'm saying, right? Because it's a double bottom line impact story of a social entrepreneur. But you are imparting education, but at the same time, you need capital to scale. So what do you do?
I'll answer the purpose one part, first. Again, like I said, that came to me. I don't think I went seeking it. Unbeknownst to me, it was offered to me when I became a mother. And I think all my steps and missteps till then were preparing me for that final role. Because I had started my design studio. I was designing restaurants and stuff, and I was having a blast. I had no desire to change the world. Okay, I was having too much fun. And then I think when I became a mother, I believe all the skill sets I was accruing till then got me ready for whatever this would be. And then, of course, that has been my purpose. So again, I think you have to be worthy of a purpose. I don't think purpose comes to everybody. You really have to be worthy of it, because it's the pain you're willing to sustain, not the joyful times. Because everybody thinks, oh, it's a fun thing. It isn't, right? So I think be open, understand that you're not aggressively going and saying, I want purpose. It will come. You will find that you are basically preparing yourself for that moment when it'll come to you. So that's the purpose bit. In this Lakshmi Saraswati bit, I think I was very, very lucky. And I think I keep saying luck is a massive, an arrangement of circumstances that I had, which didn't put the pressure of being financially viable when I started my school as the overriding principle to start. I think very often your financial viability puts in so much pressure that you change direction very quickly. Suddenly it's no longer purpose, it is the monies, it is the numbers, it is the impact. So I was very lucky. I started in my home. I started small. I had the luxury of time. I had the luxury of numbers. And I took it a year at a time. So and at no point I broke even actually in my 7th year. I mean, it took 7 years to kind of break even and all of those. So I think I spent so much time creating the program with my team that I today, I believe you have to weight in what you do. It can't be a superficial idea. It's going to break anyway, right? So again, I think I was very lucky to be gifted those 7, 8, 10 years to really get deep and get my hands dirty. I was teaching full time. I still teach in the school. I love what I do. I had such a great time. I had to learn everything ground up. I had no time to get tired or being fatigued, I still, 20 years ago, I started the school, Ashish. I still like going to school. Can you imagine? So.
Shahrukh Khan said, right? Kisi cheez ko shiddat se mango to puri kainat comes behind you, right? So that's exactly what happened. So we have a question from the audience. This is a question from Shri. How has this pandemic affected, your school maybe, but also broadly DFC? What has been the impact?
Well, I think it has possibly been hugely, like I said, challenging and fantastically gratifying, both. In one way, because we understood that the value of children, voice, and well-being have now become the forefront conversation in education. Till now, it was incidental. I mean, if they happen to get the marks, well, great, everything else was a bonus. Here, it's flipped it, and I think the focus going forward would mean very clearly that relationships and children matter the most. I think it's kind of changed the direction for all further innovations. So I think that's been super, and I think Design for Change is just ridden the wave. A lot of my partners across the world went digital. We had some super ways that we were able to give multiple more ways in which Design for Change could reach a child. In terms of the school, I think we were already doing a lot of, I would say, flipped, and whatever this now has become the big deal. But I think it just gave us the opportunity to to be very brave, to work together as a team, and to kind of give. I think it asked us if we could still bring the value proposition online. Till now, Riverside was such an immersive, experiential school, and you needed to be here, and you needed to hug each other, you needed to do all of that, right? And now suddenly you have none of those, and you have to you're just on Zoom. How do you bring those same ideas of people and empathy online? So I think it really pushed us to put that in, and yeah, so I think we did it well. I think it was great.
So Kiran, so maybe to convert this crisis into an opportunity, what are the next 1 or 2 big things you are thinking of as far as DFC is concerned? And I'm sure this is a discontinuity, right? This is a step function change which one could adopt also if one gets it right. So is there 1 or 2 things that you will do differently going forward because of COVID?
think it's given us a lot more clarity of what we don't need to teach in person. I think that's come out really, really well. I think it'll be foolish to teach what children can learn by themselves. All right, so suddenly you're gifted time. And I think that time is going to be really reimagined. You're gifted, I would say, the fluidity, the idea that you have time as a variable. And for me, that is really coming out as a massive opportunity to reimagine what will we do with time. So time has become a real ingredient to play with. And I think the piece that I am really curious to know, and is not going forward, but is going backwards to say, what memories will our children have of this year? What will 2020 be for our children? So actually it's in two ways. So today my team is kind of working on what will our children look back to 2020 as? Would it be just, oh, I was scared, I was at home, or would they be looking at 2020 and saying, our teachers did this, and we learned that, and we got this. So I think it's more about memories that we can gift our children this year, and going forward, how will we play with time? So I think these are the two that we will look at.
Right. So Kiran, we have about 5 minutes left in this session, and I think it'll be really a pity if we did not sort of do a deeper dive into your experience as a woman, getting into entrepreneurship, getting into leadership, and really being a role model for future generations of women leaders. And at Plaksha, it is our stated strategy, and it is a stated intent that we would like to get in an equal number of women into our university, into creating the future women leaders for technology, for entrepreneurship, and what have you. So the first question which somebody has asked, Shivangi has asked, is how do you balance family and work?
Well, you have to declutter. I think the problem with most of us is we want to do, we clutter our time, whichever, we all are gifted 24 hours. I don't know whether somebody else has more than that. In those 24 hours, you have to kind of declutter. And what I did many years ago, I had, I think, the unique luxury not to be worried about social norms and social traditions. I was brought up, and to answer your other question of gender, not to talk about gender. I can't remember being brought up with my mother or father telling me a girl and a boy thing. We all got motorbikes when we were able to drive. We all did the same thing. So gender never factored into my understanding of who I was. Competency did. I had to be damn competent, whatever I did. It didn't matter whether it was there. So I think in some way that filter or mind about gender didn't come much as my way forward. Having said that, for balancing, I just decluttered. I don't go to marriages. I don't go this. I just removed all of those clutters that come in the way of my work. And if family is which now are the two most important things, I don't clutter my time. I've seen too many people add, I have to go for the social function. I have to go out for this. I just choose not to. I don't socialize the way I think people expect us to socialize. So I just removed the clutter. I just decluttered. I made it extremely simple. And then I chose wisely the places I would go. So initially, of course, they said, yeah, she doesn't come anywhere. She's very arrogant. No, I'm not arrogant or anything. I just have 24 hours and I want to be able to choose that. So I've just removed all those social requirements.
I think it goes back to your comment around choices. It's an individual choice. I mean, you can have the victim mindset and you can say, look, this, that, or the other is responsible for my situation. But on the other hand, you can say, look, my life is my life. I mean, I can figure it out in whatever way I want to be. And especially in today's India, I mean, I think we are quite, progressive that way, I guess. So if there were 2 or 3 pieces of advice you wanted to give to the future women leaders, entrepreneurs, and especially from a technology point of view, what would those be?
I don't know much about all of that. I've realized now after being in doing what I'm doing for all of these years, the one thing I'm getting more and more convinced and clearer is, I mean, like two things. One is beliefs. I've started realizing that you cannot go with 21st century skills with 20th century beliefs. So I think beliefs is something that I would strongly. I think you're frozen, or am I frozen? Hello? Are you there?
I can hear you.
Okay. So I would say your own self-beliefs is something that you have to be really self-aware of and understand about who you are and what you offer. So that'll be one thing. And the second that I'm getting, I mean, not getting convinced, but I know so for a fact, is that you only have today. And I would strongly advocate that it is the today that you spend the time in investing so that tomorrow gets taken care of, right? So I would say two things: beliefs and time. Again, just today. Hey, Natasha, how are you?
Hi, Kiran. How are you doing?
Natasha, go off.
He just got a power cut, so unfortunately he dropped off.
Well, that's your whole thing about technology. Please make sure that we don't get power cuts.
That happens to the best of us.
Right.
But on behalf of Ashish, I just want to say a big thanks. It was just absolutely wonderful to hear your story. I mean, we did a poll with the audience yesterday on what kind of grand challenges they want to solve. And it was pretty inspiring to see that most of them selected education for all. And it's more and more inspiring to see how young people want to be a part of the education sector, make a difference, focus on things which matter. I think I'm sure like all our young audience members today took a lot back from you.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ashish. And whenever things work out, please remember, come and visit Riverside. You can have a coffee with Kiran. Bye.
Thanks, Kiran. Thank you so much.
Bye, Vidit.
Bye, Kiran. Hi, everyone. My name is Natasha. I'm a part of the Plaksha team, and I'll be taking over from here for the evening. Before we start off our next session, we have a very exciting poll coming up. It'll be coming up on your screen very soon. So all of us at some point have thought about starting something of our own. What do you think is the most important quality of an entrepreneur? Resilience, ability to identify problems, ability to persuade, or dedication? We'll stop in another few seconds if you'd like to put in your votes. Wow, this is very interesting. So the highest votes, well, they went to resilience, 32%, but very close to dedication. And I think like no other better people to talk about this than our esteemed panelists right now. We are very excited to announce the next session, which is called We Can Tech It. This is an extremely special session because we have three very dynamic entrepreneurs with us today. We have with us Dipinder Goyal, founder and CEO of Zomato. Zomato, as we all know, needs no introduction. He's one of the most exciting tech entrepreneurs who's revolutionized the food delivery industry in India. We also have with us Yashish Dahiya, who's the CEO and co-founder of PolicyBazaar.com, one of India's largest online insurance company, and he has a story like no other. Our host for this session is Hitesh Oberoi. Hitesh Oberoi is the co-promoter, MD, and CEO of InfoEdge. We all are familiar with Naukri.com, Shiksha.com, 99 Acres, Jeevan Sathi. Hitesh is also a founder of trustee of upcoming Plaksha University as well as Ashoka University. We would like to thank Hitesh for being an instrumental part of Infinity 2020 and for making the ocean come alive. Over to you, Hitesh.
Thank you, Natasha. Am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Great. And thank you, Yashish and Dipinder for agreeing to sort of take out time on a Sunday evening. Of course, you guys don't need any introduction, but for the record, you're both engineers. Both of you went to IIT Delhi, and then at some point in time, you decided to do a startup. And then 10 years later, you're both running unicorns, two of India's largest sort of private companies. You are in some ways the super achievers of today, and you are the people who have made things happen. Role models, in my view, for a lot of college and school going kids who are today here to sort of listen to you. So once again, thank you for taking time on a Sunday to inspire all budding engineers and entrepreneurs out there. Yashish, let me start with you. You and I go back over 30 years. We first got to know each other in school, and then, of course, we were in IT together in the same hostel. What I remember about you is that you were always a crazy guy. You know, you were always a crazy guy, but you were crazy about running. Okay. And after IIT, you went to IIM Ahmedabad, and then you did a second MBA from INSEAD. I could have never imagined, 30 years ago that you wanted to build a company, run a company. So just, for the benefit of everybody, what was your thought process like when you were in school and when you were in college, when you were in IT in those early days? Did you ever think about becoming an entrepreneur, or were you just passionate about sports at that time? Just take us through your thinking, in those days.
Sure. No, I think, school, of course, and both IIT and IIM, I don't think I ever put anything in comparison with running in terms of my priorities. So my priorities, running was quite up there. But I guess at some point I used to question, what am I going to do? Being in a job was not very attractive to me. Primarily because if I look back and if I try to analyze the last 20, 30 years of my life, I'm quite a free-spirited individual. And for me, to explain things to somebody is very difficult. And thus to have a boss is extremely difficult for me. And I've just realized that over time. And so, I did work for 4-5 years, 6 years actually, in various companies. But besides e-bookers, I never got rated more than B+. And the point is, if I look back, I was doing my job. I was achieving my targets. But I think a job requires something more than that. It doesn't just expect you to get stuff done, And so at some point I realized that was not, just not going to work out, because none of my bosses were like extremely happy with me, despite the fact that I was achieving the targets, right? I think the second part was, things happen. And I think after e-bookers, there was this team, and, Policy Bazaar idea came along, and then you guys were there to support. So I think things happened somewhere. I don't think it was a planned thing that, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. It just happened. And yes, as you perhaps know by now, when things happen, I don't give up on them very easily. So, I put in the effort when things happen. So, when the opportunity came along, and I'm otherwise quite a risk-averse person. So understand, I didn't like bosses, but I liked the salary. So at some point, it just became obvious that, you had to become an entrepreneur. I like the freedom that I got. So yeah, that's clear.
So hang on to that thought. We'll come back to how you became an entrepreneur. But for the guys, for the record, Yashish, even in those days, 30 years ago, used to run from Noida to IT Delhi, which is almost 20-30 kilometers away. So that's how crazy he was about running. And even now, he is, for people who don't know, he is a national record holder in swimming and is one of India's fastest triathletes. Dipinder, let's move on to you. So Dipinder, you are in some ways the next generation. You went to IIT almost 10 years later. I think you joined IIT in 2000. And your journey is also a little different. You didn't grow up in Delhi. You grew up in Muktsar, which is a small town in Punjab. And then you went to Chandigarh. And then you went to IIT. And then again, you worked for a few years with Bain Consulting and then decided to turn entrepreneur. So again, just sort of take us through how you sort of, what was your thinking at that time when you were in school in Muktsar? Did you want to get into IIT? Did you work hard to get into IIT? And then what happened? How did life change? How did you end up becoming an entrepreneur?
So I'll say that first of all, there was no big plan around anything that actually happened. Until about 8th class, I used to be the guy at the bottom 2 of the class. I used to always fail, and sometimes my dad had to talk to the principal to kick me to the next class. Right? And something weird happened in the first semester of my 8th standard, one of my teachers actually gave me the answers to all the questions in the hall. Like, so cheating, like pure cheating, like nothing, right? So gave me the answers. And suddenly I came third in class. From like 35th out of 36 students in my class, I came third. And I got a lot of love from everyone after that, right? So everybody started loving me. So earlier, like people used to be like, he's worthless, he's not going to do anything. And I got so much love once I came third. I said, I like this love, I want more of it. So I started working towards it, right? So the next time, and I knew that really wasn't me, right? So that really wasn't me. I didn't come third. So the next time, I stole some money from my dad, like try to bribe the printers in that small town in Muxar, trying to give me the papers for the second semester. Everybody asked me to bugger off, like they are not giving me anything. So then I actually studied for the first time in my life. I came fifth. I said, not that bad. I can do some shit, right? So then I started doing this over and over again. So there's no plan. I just take life one step at a time. I never thought I'd be here. I don't know where I'm going to go 5 years from now. Life moves on.
Quite an amazing story. I didn't know this one. I've known it for a long time, but I didn't know this one. Okay. Amazing. But so at IIT also, did you do well? Did you top your class or something at IIT, or did you stop studying at IIT?
Bottom 10%.
Bottom 10%. But then again, you made it to Bain, and amazing. Like moving on to this entrepreneurship sort of this idea. So Yashish, how did this idea come to you? How did you start? Of course, I know the story because I've known you for a long time, but for the benefit of the audience, how did you sort of decide? Insurance, and 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when you started, I think you were in 2008 is when you started, just before Lehman. Nobody really understood what the insurance industry in India was all about. You had this crazy idea of selling insurance online. How did this idea come to you?
So I was actually looking for a job after eBookers. And I will not go through the whole story, but I was interviewing with companies. And one of the companies I interviewed with was called Admiral PLC. And for those who are interested, Admiral is one of the most cash accretive, fastest growing and profitable insurance companies in the world. Basis, all parameters if you look at it. And been doing it consistently for since 1993. So I was interviewed with them. And I must tell you a few stories about them. So I was at a salary of X. They offered me a salary of 0.6 of X. But they said second year it'll double, third year it'll triple. And I found that very strange. But I found all their principles very, very strong in many ways. They didn't want to hire people by paying them more, but they wanted to retain people by paying them more. And, various such things. And then when I looked at the insurance industry, I figured these people were doing something really, really smart. They were basically, able to, as a small company at that time, able to take a very large market share. So what they had was this comparison site, which, if I go back to Admiral Start, actually this will take a bit of time. As I go back to Admiral Start, Admiral used to get customers. They would get 100 customers, only 2 would buy, the remaining 98 would be wasted. So they started selling these 98 to their competitors and started making money that way. And thus their marketing cost became so imagine ICICI selling its own leads to HDFC, etc., etc. So I learned a lot about marketing about insurance from them in that short interview process and, whatever process you have before joining. But on the last day, for whatever reasons, I didn't join them. And if I didn't join them, we did something in Europe. But then actually a colleague of mine met Hitesh at some point in one of the things. And he said, look, Hitesh was saying that Hitesh is investing in companies and all that stuff. Why don't you go and pitch to Hitesh? And maybe he will, it was a combination of things. And then I went and met Hitesh and, very quickly InfoEdge decided to invest with us. So before I had planned to do this in India, InfoEdge had decided to invest with us and the entire team was ready. We had 18 co-founders. And, it sounds crazy today, but in a way that's what happened. And truth be told, till September, I was actually looking for a job in the UK. And, till the pretty much the last day. But yeah, that's how it happened. And, Policy Bazaar started. Of course, there's now, a very strong story about it and what we want to do, but you stumble upon things sometimes.
Amazing. So for the benefit, a lot of students here have ideas, and, a lot of the audience today is parents and students and educators. Many of these students nowadays, are sort of crazy about, they are so well trained, so well equipped. They're so smart. They start building apps in class 10, class 11, class 12. They're, much, much smarter than any of us were when we were in school or college. So, what do you think it is required to sort of get going? Is an idea enough, or you think, you need much more than an idea to sort of get started? And when should somebody start in your view?
So I'll tell you the truthful answer in my opinion, because there are lots of cliched answers out there. I think for me, the thing that has really, really worked for me is I'm genuinely quite a non-selfish person. So what that means is when I make relationships, when I make friendships, when I don't look for what I get out of them. I just do them quite unconditionally. And every time I have been helped in my life, it's because of unconditionality. So, somewhere Hitesh came along and invested with us. That wouldn't have happened, Policy Bazaar wouldn't have happened. But more importantly, as I just told you, I was actually looking for a job till the last day. And so when Policy Bazaar happened, there were these 18 co-founders. And for me, it was a disaster, because please appreciate, a job in the UK would have paid me X. Policy Bazaar was paying me 1/5 of X. And my kids were going to, a private school in the UK. And I had certain expenses which were much, much more than I could have managed. So it was commercially a disaster for me. Right? So why did I do it? I genuinely tell you, this is the truth. I wanted to tell InfoEdge, I don't want the money. Please take it back. But at that point, I thought about these 18 co-founders. And I said, if I don't take this money, none of these 18 co-founders has the ability to go and stand in front of InfoEdge and collect this money. And so I'll be destroying their lives. And I said, what is more important, one family or 18 families? And so I said, I'm doing it. But I think, what did that lead to? Today, when we look at Policy Bazaar, we have almost nobody leaving. In the last 5 years, we've almost had no senior management leave us, no management leave us. But it's that little ounce of selflessness that you put in that comes back in such large quantities. People become committed to you, people help you. Again and again in life, I have seen this, that it always happens that way. Now, of course, skills you will have. But eventually, if you don't have people looking out for you, and if you don't have people willing to come and kind of go the extra mile for you, I don't think in tomorrow's world anybody can succeed alone, is my only thing. Otherwise, you will all learn, technology, you will all learn management, you will all learn engineering. But I don't think that really pulls it in the end here.
So more than skills, more than technology, it's the ability to carry people along, which becomes very, very important as you build a company.
And almost without reason. Without doing it because you want to carry them along. You're at some point, you'll have to find that little piece in you where you're doing it for others. Others will come back. You have to just believe that they'll come back.
Very interesting. Deepinder, let's move on to you. You've had a very exciting journey as well. You started very young. You became an entrepreneur pretty early on in your career. And if I'm not mistaken, you experimented with something while at IIT as well. Right? Why don't you just walk us through your journey and how you turned entrepreneur and how it all happened?
So I didn't get a good job right out of college. And I was like, okay, let me try something for a few months. I can always find a job anywhere, anytime. Like at least this job I can find anywhere, anytime. So I started a food ordering startup back in 2005. Way too early for such a thing.
Wow. 2005. Okay. Food ordering. Ordering,
yeah.
Huh?
Okay. Yeah. Website, and you could order and you do all the mumbo jumbo, right? So we had a few restaurants, never worked. That product didn't work. Shut it down in about 6 to 9 months. Had I not done this startup, I would not have gotten a job at Bain. That was very clear. Okay. So I got a job at Bain because I had this with me. That's why I got a job at Bain. I spent 4 years there. In the middle of it, it just clicked to me that what I was doing back then, I can actually do it in a different way. I don't need to enable online ordering of food. I just need to put scan menus and give people the phone numbers, and then they will order food by themselves. Like in hindsight, sometimes low tech is better tech, right? You don't have to be high tech to be better tech, right? So it was a very low tech answer, and it worked really well for the times. And then, I mean, every couple of years we're doing something new and different and bigger, and finally we are where we are. So that's been
I remember when I met you, you were actually, Zomato was actually called Foodie Bay.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and you were sort of taking these menus and putting them online. And what you told me at that time was that, at your office at lunchtime, you have people sort of always running around trying to find those pamphlets to get the phone number of Domino's or all the sort of fast food places they used to order from. And you had this insight, listen, if I put all this stuff online, they don't have to keep looking around, searching for these, pamphlets every now and then. That's how Foodie Bay, which is now Zomato, was born.
Yeah. So see, but it was not a singular experience of a eureka, right? Yeah, this is it. I had those 6 months. I could actually connect the dots, and I could connect the dots after 4 years of leaving that behind me and then being at Bain. So life just happened after that.
Amazing. And it's very interesting that you say that you didn't get a great job on campus, but you got your job at Bain because you did a startup, right? So would it be fair to say that, unlike maybe 10 or 15 years ago, when it was, people used to run after brands on campus and they wanted to work for the highest paying company, and it was considered, not a very good thing to fail. Today, things have changed. And, it's okay to fail. If you do a startup, it's, companies still look at you positively. They still value the experience. You can still get a good job, even if you fail.
Yeah. So, Hitesh, I fully am with you that times have changed. But there's also this thing I heard about in Star Trek, which is that universal law is for lackeys, context is for kings, right? So not like everyone who does a startup will land up in a better job. You have to make something out of it. You have to become a better person. You have to become a more balanced person. You have to learn from your failures. That's when people will actually appreciate you when you look for a better job. Otherwise, people are going to do you a dump when we are not even going to actually interview you. So,
so it has to be a serious attempt. You should have learned something in that journey, startup, and that learning should show in your interview when you sort of interview with whoever you're interviewing, right?
You should,
and that's when people
age 5 years every single year you're doing a startup, right? If you're not aging 5 years 5-1, that's you're not spending your time well at a startup.
So basically, what you're saying is, if you do a serious startup, in every 1 year, you actually end up gaining 4 or 5 years experience.
Yeah.
Right. Tell me, so do you in your company today hire people who failed as entrepreneurs? Do you sort of actively look for them, or do you not sort of?
We do actively look for them, but I think so that is definitely filter. Like we look for ex founders, but when we actually interview them, we look for like how much ego have they lost? Do they still have some ego left, or are they really grounded people? Like they can learn anything, they can basically unlearn everything. So those are the people we really value. Today we have 182 ex-founders with us.
182 founders, ex-founders with you. Wow. That also tells you that, it's not easy to build a startup. I mean, right? I mean, many people fail. Only one in a few really make it big.
And in hindsight, it's all luck, right? So all of us know that. We can say anything else, but it's all luck at the end of the day.
You're being modest there. But anyway, so Yashish, moving on to you. Tell me about this journey at Policy. I mean, you've been through 12? It's been 12 years now?
Almost 13, yeah.
Yeah, almost 13 years. So I'm sure there must be lots of ups and downs, and in this journey, lots of learnings, lots of challenges, opportunities missed, failures, successes. Walk us through what the last 12 years have been like for you. And what would your advice be to people who are starting up now?
Yeah. So, one thing I wanted to say, despite the personal reason for starting Policy Bazaar, the professional reason for starting Policy Bazaar from a Policy Bazaar perspective. So you have to separate Yashish and Policy Bazaar are two different entities, right? So if you look at Policy Bazaar as such, when we started Policy Bazaar, I had an extremely good idea of extremely good of what we wanted to achieve, when it would happen. And maybe my time at eBookers and all those experiences from the admiral process and various things had got me to that very fine, minute learnings about insurance. So I knew back in 2008 that we would be about where we are right now. It's crazy, right? But and that's a very strange position to be in. So I remember when we gave our financial plan to InfoEdge, we had a 5-year plan. We exactly hit it, on various parameters. So I had an extremely good idea of how the world is going to turn out. And part of it was because I had spent my time in the UK, which was roughly 10, 15 years ahead of India on the insurance curve. And so I was pretty much sitting in 2022 looking backwards at 2008. So I had an extremely strong idea. But that said, surprises did come all the time. We had various regulatory surprises. We had various business surprises. But I would say compared to most other businesses I have seen, I have almost had a boring sense of, I say boring because eventually it's boring, right? If you know what's going to happen next, imagine if your entire life was kind of written out for you. This is what's going to happen tomorrow. This is going to happen day after. This is what's going to happen the day after. And it just played out that way in blocks of 2 years. Then that starts to become boring, right? But so Policy Bazaar from that perspective has almost been a, boring layout where over the 12 years, you've pretty much every 2 years done exactly what you thought you would do 12 years ago. Of course, how to scale up has been, interesting. But from that perspective, and it continues to be boring. Like I have a very good idea of what Policy we're going to do in the next 5 years, in the next 7, 8 years. But it continues to be like boring, right? Because you go to the board meeting, you already know all the answers. There isn't too much coming in. So as Dipinder said, you've got to grow, you've got to learn. A lot of that gets challenged, starts to become boring. But yeah, it is still doing well and it still continues to grow. And I think it'll achieve what it has to. But I think that comes from a very fine understanding of how the insurance industry plays out. So, I think I was privileged to have that at the very beginning.
No, I remember that first presentation you made to us, and many things have actually turned out like you said they would at that time. And you had the foresight.
Who could have said back in 2008, when you look back, who could have said that the largest of insurance, what did I come in with? I said the entire life insurance industry is largely a hoax. Who could have imagined that then? A little kid saying the entire industry is a hoax. And it's playing out exactly that way. Now people are saying, yeah, it is a hoax. But, it takes a long time for that to happen. And
but do you think it's a good...
You need support, you need all those things. But there were times when, so look, this would be incorrect in some ways, because if I look at, let's say the 4,000 days that we've spent in Policy Bazaar, there would be 1,000 when we felt we won't survive. And there would be maybe 2,000 when we felt elated that we were on top of the world. And there would be 1,000 normal days. So I think that happens. But you've got to kind of live those ups and downs. But, as one general said during the Iraq war, he said, you've got tactical things, you've got strategic things. From a strategic perspective, nothing's changing.
Anything you would have done differently on hindsight?
See, that's again the amazing part, Hitesh. That's again, I honestly mean that. As I look back, every step was just perfect. Every step was just perfect. Of course, if I look back, I might have diluted less. I might have, we've raised a lot of capital, but then I might have chosen some of my team members to be more futuristic than what was right at that stage. So had I thought 2 years ahead and hired people who would have been useful to us 2 years from now, I think that is something I could have done. But then again, people change. And the same people, if they are able to do the work. So I can't think of too many things I would have done different. I would probably handle the regulator a little differently. But, that's my style, me. So I have to be straightforward. And I have been straightforward with them. Eventually, some of them can swallow it, some of them can't swallow it. But maybe as I'm learning from a lot of younger entrepreneurs on how they handle regulation, etc., maybe I could have, been a little more smart on that front.
Dipinder, you've had quite a journey. I've seen your journey very, very closely, and you've had a topsy-turvy ride. I mean, you did a lot of bold things. And then, of course, you went internationally. You were one of the first Indian companies to go international in a very, very aggressive way. And then you had to literally pivot your business and move from restaurant reviews to, food ordering and food delivery. And you did that very, very successfully. So just walk us through your journey. How have the last 10 or 12 years been like? How did you take those decisions? What have you learned along the way? What were your successes and failures like?
So, Hitesh, I think one of the strongest points of the company we built is that we are very okay with sunk cost. Like, even if we've done something for 6 years, 10 years, and if it doesn't make sense anymore, we can actually can it and move on the next day, right? So, and we can build something new. So I think that's been and we've done so many things, right? We've actually started so many things, we've scaled so many things, we have actually shut down so many things as well. And everything has led to the next one, right? And it's all been a journey. I don't think that we would have done what we're doing right now without doing everything that we did in the past, even if those things cease to exist right now. So I think that's been our biggest strength.
No, absolutely. And, Zomato sounds like, every day is like day one still.
Mm-hmm. So
Zomato.
Yesterday is a moot point now, right? I mean, it's gone. Now you have today and the future. What do you do with it?
And you are still as motivated and as energized you were when you started Zomato, even after
more
10 or 12 years of going through this?
More.
More. Okay. You want to do even more. Okay. Great. So Yashish, like I said, there are so many students watching, and many of these students are in school, and there are lots of questions also out there. People want to know, what should I study? Should I do engineering? Should I do biology? Should I do biotech? What is the future? Kya karna chahiye? When should I start? What should I do? What should I not do? What would your advice to students be today? I mean, you also have kids, I'm sure, and you also sort of have a sense of what's happening in the world around us. What would you advise students who are in school and college today?
See, you can do. I'll give both the professional advice type and the personal advice type. So anything which is tech oriented, which can go global, is where the future will lie. I believe whatever can move to digital, whatever can move across the globe very fast, whatever can transform a particular industry. So eventually you need to get deep insights about industries. Now, the second thing I would say is don't get limited to technology. I would say go into some industries so you can identify. I wouldn't have understood if I didn't have the job from Admiral. I would have never understood insurance. And once that understanding is there, the technology can be the easy part. Today I understand insurance enough that I could do a tech play on a global scale to transform the insurance industry from within, almost in a brandless fashion. But I think to get to that level of understanding of what exactly would you do, you probably have to get to 3, 5, maybe the 10th level of detail in terms of exactly what problem you're solving and how confident you can be about solving that particular problem. But I think those are the kind of opportunities which will create the next, Mark Zuckerbergs and I think every kid should eventually, why not, aim for that. But for that, as I said, you need that depth as well. On a personal piece, I've met a lot of people, and they see me running and they see me all these things, and a lot of people have commented on two things. One is, throughout the race, I always look tired. Second part is I don't slow down and I don't stop. I think the second is the biggest strength any person can ever have. If you don't give up, you will win. There are only two ways, right? You either lose, or I would say you either give up or you win. There is no third way. All losers in the world are people who give up. So, and be sure of yourself. Be sure of yourself. I remember I met one classmate of ours, both Hitesh and mine, long ago. They had just sold a large company, Party Gaming. And, the person had $1 billion or something or whatever, maybe a little less than that, pretty much in their bank. But I still remember that conversation. it wasn't like if, it was like when I am in that state. The point I'm trying to make is be confident in your goals, whatever they are. Be absolutely confident in your goals. And you will definitely achieve them. I don't know anybody who has stated a goal, lived to that goal, and who's not achieved it. I don't know anybody. The point is, yeah, of course, that doesn't mean just having a goal and not doing anything about it.
So you're saying have a goal, stick to it, work hard, have deep insights on what you're trying to do, what problem you're trying to solve. And if you are at it for long enough, you'll ultimately make it.
Yeah, and by all means, take up jobs in these industries which are laid back, which do not have. See, Dipinder knows about food. I know about insurance. What about the manufacturing industry? What about the automobile component industry? What about the textile industry? What about, there are so many industries. What about the medicine industry? What technical innovation is happening in them? Only if you're part of the industry would you really learn all that. So there's no harm in being in those industries. Treat your first 5-6 years as maybe learning opportunities to pick up a deep understanding, with the full faith that eventually one day you will want to deploy technology to transform.
So you would therefore recommend to kids that they at least work for a few years, get in some good experience, get their hands dirty, pick up some deep insights about some industry, some area, something which they can then use to sort of their advantage later.
I wouldn't recommend anything. All I would say is, if you have a very good idea of what you want to do, fine. But don't become a tech entrepreneur just because it's the cool thing to do. Do it when you understand a bit. And take a lot of feedback from others. I promise you, when you understand stuff, you will start getting that feedback back also. And yes, that might imply a few years of experience in an industry which you learn a little bit about. And maybe you come with a background where you don't need that. You already have some understanding.
Great. Dipinder, what would your advice be to students today? I mean, what do you think they should be studying? Should they be spending so much money on college? Should they be starting young? Should they get work for a while before they get into something? Do you think entrepreneurship is for everybody? What would your advice be to students today?
Ish, I think about 20 years ago, people used to scoff at people who used to start companies. Now it's gone the other way around. Everybody wants to start a company. I get a lot of emails from students saying, I want to be like you. And I just can't get it. I was like, why? Why do you want to be me? Why can't you be you? If you like to paint, please go and paint. If you like to sing, please go and sing. Do what you really want to do. Do what makes you feel free, right? Starting a company for me was not about making money. It was about freedom, right? And like every founder eventually starts a company only because they want to feel free. That's it. Money is a byproduct of everything. So if you want to paint, please paint. That will give you freedom. 5 years hence, at least you won't be saying that I live life on someone else's terms. You have to live life on your own terms, and you should define what your life should look like, not me. I shouldn't define what your life should look like, irrespective of what I've done in my life. That's my advice. So do anything, chill. Don't take
fantastic. But is there a mantra for success according to you? Just like Yashi gave his mantra, what would your mantra for success be?
So again, I'll bring you back to 10 plus 1, 10 plus 2. 10 plus 1, I scored 37% again.
Yeah.
Not the guy who could have cracked JEE. In JEE, I went in with ye to nahi hona hai. So when I was chilling and I wrote something and I got a decent enough rank. So I think pressure kills people. Right? If people don't take pressure, they will actually do much, much, much better in life. So I am actually repulsive to pressure. External pressure, I would say. Internal pressure, I would set my own shit and like I would go for it. External pressure, I just can't handle it.
But there's so much pressure from society, from parents, from मेरा बच्चा IIT में हो गया, मेरा बच्चा यहाँ जा रहा है. My friend is going here. He's got 99%. You take the newspaper today. I mean, it's impossible to get into Delhi University if you don't get 98%. I mean, so what do you do in a situation like this?
then why is even Delhi University important?
I think
you're
that's a
saying,
very important.
Throw them out,
yeah,
right?
Yashish? Yeah.
I think that's a very important one that Dipinder just mentioned. Every time you have to do what you believe in. If you follow somebody else's path, see, all of us went to IIT, but if we look back at our own batchmates, not everybody has become a success, right? And not everybody achieves that. Now, and the reason is many people just get into the rat race, maybe because of, that is just the only thing to do. And they somewhere forget about their own passion. And because they do that, they don't excel. And eventually you have to follow, what you are good at. You can't do what somebody else is good at, you know. And I think that applies to everything. Of course, you look at it everywhere. You see success from everywhere. And second thing I would mention, this is, just something I wanted to mention because there's so many young people. I, in my school, also had a friend from Mukatsar. And he was also, 35th out of 37. But, Dipinder took a certain path, that person took a certain path, and he's also a very smart person. I believe he's a very, very smart person. He's a good friend of mine. But he went into drugs, he went into all those kind of things. And he was a very wealthy person as well. But, today his life doesn't look very aspirational. So, I would say, keep your habits sane. Keep yourself on the path. Keep yourself, your habits a little controlled. And I think, follow your passion, hard work, you will do quite well. That's, basically the piece.
Okay, last question for both of you. Of course, 30 years ago, when I passed out of IIT, when Yashish passed out of IIT, actually there weren't too many jobs in India for engineers. Only people who graduated from computer science and electrical engineering got good jobs. And then, which is why, a lot of people went on, in some people went to the civil services, some people did an MBA, many things happened. And many people actually ended up going overseas, right? But today, of course, India of today is very, very different. It's a much, much larger economy. There are many more opportunities. So today, do you think it makes sense for students to go overseas and stay and work overseas? Or do you think it makes sense for them to come back to India or stay in India and solve India's problems? Because there are many more opportunities here today than was the case maybe 10 or 20 or 30 years ago.
So if I go first at it, my view is the opportunities are in India. There's no doubt about it. The opportunities are in India. India is a growing economy. And I think 10, 20 years from now, the total quantum of economy that will be added to India will be much higher than the quantum of economy added pretty much anywhere in the world. That's number one. Number two, why does international help? You get a perspective of what's going on in the rest of the world. I could not have done Policy Bazaar if I had not been in the UK. I did it in India, but basis what I learned in the UK and basis what I learned in so many other countries. Of course, that is not for everyone, but for me, being abroad was an eye-opener. It taught me how Italians are different from Spanish. How, I used to, when I was at IIT, we used to think, many of us used to think, Indians are very good in mathematics. But then why do the Italians make the Ferraris? They're also, engineering wonders, right? How do the Germans make such beautiful cars? How do the French make such beautiful wine? How do the Italians again make, the yachts that they make? The point I'm getting at is there is a world out there, and there is no harm spending time if you get the opportunity to learn about the world. We don't have to be in a hurry to deliver. It's a long life ahead. So that's the other thing I believe, right? We've got 40, 80-year careers. We are very young. We don't have to be in a rush. We can absorb a lot before we start acting. But yeah.
Dipinder, your take on that?
My take is that India everywhere has its pros and cons. Comes down to what you really want in life. If you have the kind of clarity of thought to know what you really want in life, you will make the right choices. But these are different things. Like going to the US, staying here, they're very different things. And I think at a different life stage of someone, different things also sometimes make sense. So maybe now is the right time to stay in India for that person and later go to the US and vice versa.
But do you think there are enough opportunities for tech people in India now to do stuff, to build things from scratch?
Absolutely. You can do anything. So, and I mean, back then, even when we started, like everybody used to tell us, market nahi hai, TAM nahi hai, this nahi hai, wo nahi hai, right? So eventually things fell in place. And if you stay at it, things might take 3 years longer to get there, but they will get there. And you have a lifetime. You don't want to build 7 companies, 10 companies in one lifetime. You should just build one great one. I think that's a lot more than 7 good ones.
You know, a private equity friend of mine told me some time back that there are today maybe 20, 30 unicorns in India. But given the rate at which the Indian economy is growing, it's only a matter of time. In the next 10 years, he won't be surprised if there are 250 unicorns out of India. Maybe 25 of them have already been funded, but maybe 200 of them are still sort of to come. You know, maybe 25 already work in process, but another 200 are still to come. So that's the size of the opportunity, I guess, we are looking at in India over the next 10 or 15 years. So on that note, guys, thank you so much once again for taking the time out on a Sunday evening. I think I really enjoyed my conversation. I got to know things I didn't know about the two of you earlier. So it's great. I mean, we were able to do this on Zoom and not over a glass of beer as we would have otherwise. So once again, thank you so much. I hope everybody else enjoyed the evening as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Hitesh.
Thank you so much, Dipendra and Yashish, for sharing your truly inspiring journeys with us today and all the advice. The points about taking feedback, not becoming an entrepreneur for the sake of it, as well as taking people along with your mission will be truly valuable for our audience today. And we are glad to have hosted you today with us. Hitesh, a big thank you to you for hosting the session and for being a wonderful host as always. A big thanks to our audience for tuning in. And I hope you found this session just as inspiring as we did. With that, we move on to our next session, which is called Inclusion, Innovation, and Technology. This session is very special to all of us because we have with us incredible individuals who have used technology innovatively to make the world a much better place. The host for this session is Radhika Bharat Ram, who's the Joint Vice Person of the Sri Ram Schools. She also holds leadership positions at the Delhi Crafts Council as well as the Blind Relief Association. Her work in inclusion is truly inspirational and it's across spheres. She recently started a fellowship as well for female students from underrepresented groups on life skills. Apart from her multifaceted work, she's very talented. She enjoys music, pottery, and running half marathons. There's no better person than Radhika to actually host this session. And over to you, Fur.
Thank you so much for that very warm introduction. Namaste and a very warm welcome to everyone. Today's session is something that I feel very passionately about. I believe technology can do so much more than improve someone's life. It can support differently abled, it can empower women, and it can educate our children to make a larger contribution to our society. I came across this quote recently by George Couros, and he says, technology is not just a tool, it can give learners a voice that they may not have had before. And I have a great panel today to take them through some conversation and learn from them and get inspired. Our 3 panelists are inspiring, they are change makers and doing everything they can to create an inclusive society by using technology innovatively. So give me some time to introduce them to you, and I'll be very quick. Our first panelist, Dr. Kalika Bali, is the principal researcher at Microsoft Research India, a linguistic professor turned speech technologist. Her work at Microsoft Research is about understanding, processing, and generating code mixed language data for text and speech. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Ms. Seri Chehal, founder and CEO of Sheroes. I'm a great fan of hers. I love the work that she does. A community platform. She's created a community platform for women, offering support, resources, opportunities, and interaction via sheroes.com. She's credited with building up women at work and future of conversation of work in India, besides building a strong technology play to solve problems of gender disparity in India, which we really need. Last but not the least, Dr. David Chesney, a warm welcome to you, sir, a lecturer and research investigator at University of Michigan. He has won multiple teaching awards and was involved in the formation of a multidisciplinary design minor in the College of Engineering. He was also involved in formation of an internal center to create hardware and software for children with cognitive and physical disabilities through a collaboration between the College of Engineering and CS Mottcall Children's Hospital. A very warm welcome, and thank you so much for taking out your precious time to be with us and to inspire us. So to start off the conversation, maybe you all can share briefly with us the work that you do, and why do you do what you do? What inspires you? And if you're working currently on a project that you would like to share with us that would give us a better understanding, we would love to learn more about it. So maybe we can start with Dr. Bali, if that's all right.
Thank you for the welcome. I'm so happy to be here. So to start off with why I do what I do, it's been so long I've been doing this. It's been a long time since I've had the chance to sit back and think why I do what I do. But I think it's because I really am fascinated about fascinated with languages, how humans use languages to practically do everything, right? Like if we didn't have language, how would we live? We can't even imagine how we'd live without a language, right? And then how can technology help assist humans across various languages? How can it be possible that somebody who knows Tamil can talk to somebody who knows Bahasa Indonesia, can talk to somebody who knows Fijian? So how do we make this communication across these languages possible with the help of technology? And that's the reason why I do what I do, because I really do believe that technology is a very powerful tool. It can be used for good, it can be used for not so good things also, but when it is used for good, it can really empower communities and make things accessible to them, which they might not have even thought would be accessible to them. So one of the things that I do work on, I know you mentioned code switching, but that's just one thing that I work on. So one of the things that I'm very passionate about is how to help people with who live in marginalized communities, who speak languages that are not the mainstream languages, and nobody's really worried about them. So everyone's worried about English and French and German, and in India, Hindi. But nobody is really worried about, the smaller languages, and they're smaller only in terms of the resources that are available to them, and not small in terms of the number of people who speak them, right? So, if it is Gondi, for example, in India, half the people, I'm sure even here amongst the students who are attending this, would not even know where Gondi is spoken, and may not have even heard that there is a language called Gondi in India. And, over 1 million people use it. So how can we build all this technology that we have access to, speaking these mainstream languages, for people who speak these languages as well? So it's a project called Project Ellora, and that's what I am currently very passionate about. Well, currently I'm working on it. I'm passionate about it from a long time. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Very fascinating and inspiring, I have to say. I think most of the time, you say lost in transition. So, it's something like that. Seri, can I request you to sort of take on those 3 questions?
Right.
Remember them.
Yeah, I'll try my best. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. It's always good to be back at Plaksha, and I think there's a lot of resonance with what you guys are doing. So look, I think the premise of work we do is very, very simple. We believe that, India, we are a country of dichotomies. We're the country with the largest gender gap in the world, but we're also the country with the second largest internet population in the world. So I think there's something, to double click there. And the work we do is actually very simple. We are just saying that internet can mean a lot more for women in a country where social barriers are very, very high. Social barriers, both in terms of access of, let's say, financial capital, access to just their own voices, and of course, mobility, social mobility, as well as mobility in every which way. So we believe technology is the biggest enabler in our times, and our smartphones, our devices, we all love. So why can't that be magical, or why can't that be game changing for a lot of women out there who are kind of invisible? They're there, but they're kind of, and in fact, one of the most interesting things that's happened in India is a lot of work around women was historically very grassroots, which meant that if you were setting up a charity or an NGO, you would go to rural India. And then, of course, there's a lot of talk around diversity, which happens, let's say, in the corporate sector. But guess what? There are almost 200 million women who are kind of urban, peri-urban, educated, semi-educated, maybe self-employed, micro-entrepreneurs. And these are the 200 million invisible women. No policy really talks to them, and now, because they are all connected online, it's game changing for them. So the work we do falls under primarily four things. One is using internet as a means of support. So she uses a social network platform. So women come in, it's a safe space, but that coming into the safe space opens a lot of opportunities. It's like how coming to Plaksha opens a lot of opportunities, or going to a Gymkhana club opens a lot of opportunities, which are social in nature. And second is access to employment, entrepreneurial opportunities, and now slowly access to capital. So everything that you need to move up the social graph and the financial graph in your life could be found in one place. And that's exactly what we're building.
But what inspired you to do this? I mean, where did this idea come from?
Well,
and why?
So look, I'm one of those 200 million women. My childhood was not very, it was great, but it wasn't extraordinary. I come from one of these families. There's a movie I quote all the time. It's called Bareilly Ki Barfi. So it's set in Bareilly. There's a mom and a daughter, and there's nothing extraordinary, but the vibe is that everybody wants to do well in life, and everybody sort of wants to also keep their context, and I think here we are at a time. So a lot of my generation of women ended up doing something because we were the outliers. We had to move out of our context. We had to actually break barriers and say, I'll leave my past behind and I will sort of set up something new. But 200 million women can't do that. So let us sort of bring development to them where they are, right? In their own context, in the life they love, in the country they were born in. So I think a little bit of that.
Thank you for sharing that and being so honest about that. Dr. Chesney, can I request you to address us?
Sure, absolutely. First, thanks for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here. So the first part of the question was kind of what do we do? And what we do is pretty straightforward, where we take interesting new technology. So whatever is the newest, greatest technology that students are interested in. We combine that with some kind of interesting, either specific need of an individual or a clinical need identified from our hospital. So it could be a child with cerebral palsy who only has fine motor skills in their right two toes. It could be somebody who's visually impaired and has memory loss and can't remember where they put their clothes away in the closet. And so building a smart closet that remembers where clothes are put and what shelves are on. So that's kind of the melding, the marriage of interesting technology and specific needs. So that's the what. The why, or the motivation, is actually, frankly, pretty simple. My life is blessed by being the father of 3 daughters. And so with being the father of 3 daughters, I always, I grew up as their dad trying to figure out, it's like, how can I get them interested in both giving back to community and interest in technology? So that's really the catalyst, is just, of just just chatting with them and working with them as they grew up into adulthood. And then some of the current projects. You asked about some of the current projects. One of them is actually on everybody's mobile phone that I'm talking to right now. This came right out of the class, and it's if you dig deeply in the accessibility options on all of your cell phones, there's all of these different options. You can make text bigger or smaller, change a contrast, change a color, change things. At least one of those came from work in my classes, and so it's like that's kind of the where these things go, or where they where they lead to. Other projects that we worked on are related to, I mentioned the smart closet. There was a project that we worked on. A young man wanted to, with cerebral palsy, who only had fine motor skills in his right two toes, wanted to fly a drone. So we built a drone, built a control mechanism, mounted an iPad down by his right foot so he could drag his toes around and fly the drone around the room. We also do work with augmented reality and pediatric surgery. So those are just some of the projects that we work on. There's on my website, there's a bunch of videos. I didn't know whether there would be time. I assume there wouldn't, but there's videos that, and I can send a link to that if anybody's interested, but it goes through a bunch of these stories, and there's videos and very nice stories about some of these projects.
Wow, that would be very interesting. Actually, it would be lovely if you could. A follow-up question to what you just said. A lot of your work is around assistive technology, right? And you work with your students to come up with these projects. How do you involve your students to work on these high impact projects, and how do you sort of ignite that spark in them? And there are some educators who are sitting here, teachers, and it'll be very interesting to get that insight. How do you make children think of these big projects that could change someone's life?
So the simplest way that I've found is to get the individuals who have the needs actually involved in the classroom. Okay, so the one video that I have queued up, it's a 4-minute video, and like I said, I don't necessarily want to take time out of this wonderful presentation, but it is worth seeing. And what came to mind the first time Grace came into the classroom, I realized that the students were infinitely motivated by her, and there was no motivation that I needed to provide whatsoever. They met Grace, she just inspired them, and then I could just move over to the side of the classroom and Grace did the teaching, and that's a wonderful thing. They were asking Grace questions about what type of tools do you need, what will work best for you, and so I provided the technology, Grace provided the knowledge and the inspiration.
Fabulous. I actually haven't seen the video. I know I went onto your page and it did mention there, but I think it'll be worth having a look at that. My question to, I know, Seri, you need to leave early. My next question is that, I think pandemic has made, work at home a reality for everybody. I think accessibility to technology has become a way of life now. Has it sort of put any sort of roadblock for your work going forward? And do you think this is going to be something that would help women who have to juggle so many other commitments, that work at home will become a way to enable many more to join the workforce?
Absolutely. So I think because of the pandemic, obviously, not only remote work has become universal, but there were certain, I would like to call them short-term roadblocks. I think there was a time when everybody was in lockdown, children were at home, and I think for women, the amount of work they had to do just kind of was enormous. And I think that was the time for huge amount of anxiety. And I think in some families, of course, we run a helpline. So our, requests for help against abuse and domestic violence went up. But having said that, I think if I take a slightly longish view, let's say 2 years to 5 years kind of view, we've historically run a remote work business, okay? And it's very simple. Women are certified as remote workers. They basically set themselves up as remote workers. They set up a home office. And the story is like 2 years, 3 years ago, this business. But this business always had like a little bit of resistance from everyone to say, hey, how do I know work can get done from home? And, our sales cycles were small. smaller. And so we had about 10,000 women on this bench, okay, before the pandemic. And by the time this year finishes, will be 100,000 women on that bench who are remote workers. So I think this year has been watershed in every way, because thanks to acceptance of remote workers, I think a lot more women will come into the economic mainstream, and not only as remote workers, but also as micro entrepreneurs, self-employed professionals, online creators. I think there's a whole big trend. Just to give you some top level statistics, there are about 15 million women who are solo entrepreneurs in this country. They're micro entrepreneurs, basically. They're a one-man shop or a one-man business, one woman business rather. And occasionally they employ another one. So there are about 30 million women employed in this mini economy. And our estimates say that in about 2 to 3 years, this number will become like at least 3x. So, so this pandemic is kind of, it's uncorking the lid on a lot of opportunities that were bottled up. And, I mean, a lot of our work was pushing this through. And I think the pandemic's kind of, opened it up, and now the genie is not going to go back in the bottle. So yeah, I think good for all of us.
Great, great. Dr. Bali, I work with the visually impaired, and I often find that the technology that is available to them is so expensive, and it doesn't really help them, and especially the masses. How can we sort of make sure that technology is more accessible, which could support the visually impaired or the deaf or the disabled, especially in India? And what can we do to make it more accessible for them?
I think maybe Dr. Chesney might be the right person to answer that question. Would you like to take that? Because I think in India, a lot of people are working on these areas. I think we need a lot more investment from both the government as well as the private entrepreneurs, and that kind of nexus between the government and private enterprise has to come together and make this possible. So the policy and the technology has to kind of go hand in hand. So just to kind of my very little experience in building technology for people with disabilities is that I'm part of a committee of IEEE where we're looking at language standards, and one of the subgroups in that committee is accessibility. And I wasn't aware, but as part of the committee, I became aware that there are these long lists of things that are required or are recommended. There are recommendations as well as even requirements, like mandatory requirements for technology. If it is going to be outwardly facing, consumer facing, then these are the things that you need to do in terms of accessibility. But the implementation is so low, and that's where I think the policy part has to come and play a big role. The government has to come and play a big role. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Jesse, it would be interesting to get your input on this as well.
So if I can piggyback on that, and in complete agreement with Dr. Bali, if you think about policy and innovators and technology coming together, okay, and there was, I think it's 25, 30 years old now, but there was this law, the set of laws that came into place in the United States called the Americans with Disabilities Act, okay, and I would venture to say that the two groups of people who were most pleased by that set of policies were, first, people with disabilities, because it gave them access to public buildings. And then I would say the second happiest group of people would probably be Otis elevators. All right, because what the Americans with Disabilities Act meant was that all buildings had to be accessible by a broad range of people. So Otis elevators, who happened to manufacture elevators, said, wow, this is great news for us too. So this was really a marriage of, a great company that produces elevators and public policy that said, our public buildings need to have elevators. And so I think it's again, this marriage in between the two. It's the magic that happens when those two things come together.
So my next question is about breakthroughs. And what do you think going forward is going to be the next breakthrough in your field, and that would actually help us in creating an inclusive society, and that you hope to see or to work on?
So if I may.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. All right. So I think, look, a lot of these things seem like a non-starter for a long time. The truth is, a lot of change really looks like it's never going to happen, and it's dark for a very long time. And just to give you like some references, my first startup was in '99, and I think none of us knew what internet it was, right? I mean, I think those are the days of dial-up modems, and like having a computer was a big win. Maybe 2,000 people shared a computer. And 5 years ago, when I started Shiros, there were maybe 10 million women online, and I think still, we had bandwidth and we had a lot of this going on, but it hadn't become mass, right? And then if you look at last 5 years, the change has been so fast, right? We have built a digital payment stack. There's a social security stack, or at least there's a social security number now. There are frameworks for banking, like Aadhaar, Jan Dhan accounts, account aggregators. Now there's a common insurance stack being built. These are all things that help build a lot of change for a lot of, like, at least from where we see this, this might help us. So it took us 5 years to get from 1 million women to 20 million women. And our hope is that we will go from 20 million women to 100 million women in the next 3 years, right? So I think pace of change, I think the thing about technology is the first few years are really, really slow and full of failures. And you never, if you look at the first few computers, everything was so clunky for a really long time. And now I think the pace of change is like that. And I think we're seeing a huge amount of consumerization of technology, which means almost everyone will have some part of technology in their lives, which is very, very real, very, very connected to their daily lives, whether it's food or education or healthcare or livelihood. And I think these are big triggers, and we've seen it in parts of LATAM. We've definitely seen it in China, and we hope that India gets to a point where a lot of basics are accelerated by technology. Healthcare, education, infrastructure, livelihoods. These are big themes, and I think we might be onto something. At least if we do these things right and make sure access continues to be easy for a large number of people, it's a possibility.
Dr. Bali?
Yeah, so I think we are living through paradigm change as far as my field is concerned. This is the time when everything's just changing for what we call natural language processing and speech technology, machine learning, huge models. I'm sure people who are following this would have read all about the GPT-3, which can just create human-like language out of nothing, etc. So we are kind of right now riding this wave. It's a very exciting time for the field. There are things that even 4 years back would not be possible that seem possible now, but it is also a time to kind of take a step back and think what's happening. What are these opportunities? What are we doing? And I think a lot of people, organizations, individuals, institutes have started thinking about the repercussions of this technological wave. How, the so-called AI wave that we are having right now. Where does ethics fit into this? What are we doing to make sure that the technology remains inclusive and fair? How do we ensure that the people who are in society sociologically marginalized or discriminated against are not even more discriminated because of the use of technology. That's not what we want, right? So this is a very good time, I think, in the development of these models and these technologies to sit back and think, where are we going with this? How are we doing this? Are we being equally fair? Is it equitable? Is this technology equitable, or are we just increasing the barriers and increasing the distance between the haves and the have-nots? So, good time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, talking from education space, we can see this disparity very, very clear. And I think India will have to pay a very heavy price for what is really happening right now, because there is no accessibility to almost 80% of children in India, which is a very, very huge number. So yes, we need to step back and see how to enable and how to get over this going forward. Dr. Chesney, just your take on breakthrough, the next big technology thing that would happen.
So I think that is a very, very excellent question. And my response is I have no idea. The metaphor that I use is you know when spaghetti is cooked, when you throw it against the refrigerator, and if the noodle sticks to the refrigerator, it's cooked. And if it falls down onto the ground, then it's not cooked. And I feel kind of the same way about technology is let's just try to use everything and let's see which of the noodles stick to the wall. Okay. So as an example, we just, and I look for the technology that I try to use is, kind of consumer based, low cost equipment. Okay.
Yeah.
So as an example, I just bought Amazon Prime days were just a couple of days ago, and I ordered a couple of the new Echo Dots, the Amazon Echo Dots to play around with. And the reason that I ordered those is I really think the applicability of those Echo Dots for somebody who's visually impaired is huge. I mean, clearly, having a voice controlled home, turn up the thermostat, turn on the lights, turn on the stereo, turn on the fan, and really the Echo Dot is a perfect device for somebody who's visually impaired. So that might be one of the noodles that sticks, but in terms of like, we're really pushing hard at our university, using virtual reality and augmented reality right now. Okay. And I think it's cool. I mean, I really like it and I like playing with it. Whether it has long-term impact in a lot of different areas and whether it has long-term impact for people with accessibility, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's one of those where maybe so, maybe not. We bought a few years ago when Google Glass first came out, right? I mean, we were all just abuzz with Google Glass and how to use Google Glass. So people were spending all kinds of grant money on Google Glass, and they were like $2,500 a pop. So they were very expensive equipment. And we never found any use models for Google Glass. It was like one of those things where it was one of those technologies that showed great promise. So we invested in it just to see, how we could make it work. And we never found any real use for it. Where again, this Echo Dot might work really well to wire up a house for somebody who's visually impaired to make their house completely accessible. So going back to the original question, I have no idea. But it's like, let's just look at this new technology. Let's look at potentially different types of disabilities and see where those might fit together.
Thank you. My other question is, what will be the future learning models once, whenever we are over with pandemic, we've become so dependent on, and kids have enjoyed actually, who have access to technology, enjoyed learning through, the technology, but they missed interaction with their teachers and professors. So what is your recommendations for educators, how to sort of build that there's a balance where there is interaction, yet there is support of technology? What would you suggest and what would be your take on that? Dr. Jesse.
It's a really good question. And I don't know. I mean, I think the pandemic is forever changing the way that we're going to educate our students. I mean, I really do. That this was, this was forced upon us.
Yes.
And we are innovating and coming up with completely new approaches based upon this forced march of this new technology. And I think that some of the things that we've gained, how to use different cameras, how to find the microphone that works the best, what lectures to record, what lectures to deliver, asynchronously versus synchronously. And I think all of these things are valuable, but man, I miss my students in 3 dimensions. I mean, it's been 2-dimensional teaching for a while now, and we're adapting, but I miss the 3-dimensional interaction. So I think there's little niblets that we're learning, and I really do think that those will help us in education long term. For the student who's sick at home, maybe who's sick at home for long term, and we still want to get the information to them, and want them to be educated. So I think there's niblets that we're learning along the way, and I think time will tell what really works out. But I for one, I can't wait to get back in the classroom.
Yeah, I get to hear that a lot. I know my children are just dying to go back to school and interact with their teachers. They miss that connect. Dr. Bali, the next question, I was just thinking, I know Microsoft has done so much work as far as, creating platforms for schools. What else is Microsoft thinking of, and especially in the field that you are in, to enable a better communication between the learners and the teacher?
So that's actually not my field. So my field is totally on the language side.
Yes.
And on there, I think the things that we are kind of working on is how to, so currently there's this whole technology associated with deep learning, and there are these big models which allow you to kind of see earlier what the problem that we had in making technology rapidly for a lot of languages was that you had to have a lot of data for each language. And now one of the things that in Microsoft and in other places around the world, in the technology world, that we are excited about is how we can have this model which with very little data you can adapt to new languages. So it's not currently, it doesn't really work it's not a foolproof way to do it right now, but that's the exciting thing that we are kind of thinking about. But coming back to what you were asking, Dr. Chesney, I think in that though we are very excited about the technology and everything, but and it's been thrown at us, there it has also thrown up a lot of problems, especially for a country like India. My child and your children have access to the topmost technology. They can, and they are anxious to get back to school. But I know a lot of people like my, my helpers, kids and all, who are actually doing their lessons in a phone this size. Right. And that's not a way to teach or learn. Right. And then there are hundreds of thousands of other children who don't even have access to that phone, right? That form factor. So it's kind of thrown up these issues, and it's also kind of thrown up the issue of language, right? If you don't know English, most of these technology, the content, the access is available in English. What if you don't know English? How are you going to access? So these are the opportunities for people to kind of put their heads together and work to resolve these problems that cause these kind of barriers between different sections of society, is what I think. So I think like language is a big part in our country that disallows people to participate in this technology or whatever we are having right now.
Yeah. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. I think we have a new national policy which should be rolling out next year, which says that you can, at least in the elementary years, teach in the mother tongue and the language that the child understands. I really don't know how that'll also happen. But I totally understand the gap is only getting bigger. But just to one more question, because in India, that how do you make it affordable? Again, my question keeps coming back to this, because this is going to continue, and then we'll have a generation which won't have got educated. So it's how do you address, and how fast can it be addressed, is one of the bigger challenges.
So the thing, according to me, the thing is that it's not that expensive as we think it is, right? And with the newer, how does everyone have a phone now? How did everyone? How did we have this mobile phone explosion in India, right? And if people are able to watch movies and songs, etc., on their phones, we can definitely use the same infrastructure. To make it more access. It just needs a will. It needs a group of willing people. It needs a group of people who will support these people to make it happen. So I think the young are the answer. I think for example, we had a workshop for the Gondi thing. We were trying to brainstorm on what we should do that would help the Gondi community in terms of technology, right? And it was like with the community leaders and some NGO and everything, and we were brainstorming, and we had these young people who are our RFs and interns who are part of that workshop, and they were just participating, and they got so inspired by what was happening, what the Gondi community leaders were saying, that they went off and built an app that allowed them to access information in Gondi. They just hacked their way through it. So it's just the will. If you want to do it, the infrastructure right now, I believe everything is available for people to scale this.
Yeah. Just I think we have some students who are listening to you, and my last question was, what one piece of advice you would like to give these young scientists who are going to going to take on this journey of innovation. How can they use this technology, and what should be their way forward? A piece of advice from your journeys.
Okay, I'll go first. So as technologists, and I say this every time, every place I'm asked to speak to young people, as technologists, we often forget. We get so excited about the coolness of technology and how lovely this is to play with, and these are like just amazing toys and stuff. We forget the people we are building technology for. So whatever you do, remember who you're doing this for, right? And only then can a technology be truly useful, truly impactful, and make the change that you want it to make, right? So never forget who you're innovating for, who you're building for. So that's my advice.
Beautifully said. Thank you. That resonates with me as well, because when you work with community, you shouldn't just go there presuming what you think you want to give to them. Actually, they have to tell you what they want. So so beautifully said. Thank you so much. Dr. Chesney, what would your be one piece of advice?
And this is in complete agreement with Dr. Bali, is make it personal. I mean, do something that matters to you, based upon people that you know. And again, piggybacking on what Dr. Bali just said, make the technology bend to the people you're trying to serve, rather than providing technology and say, people adjust to this technology this wonderful technology that I just provided to you. So, make it person first, and then figure out how the technology might work for those individual people.
Thank you. I mean, that was very inspirational. I mean, I have really enjoyed just listening to, I think Seri has left, but the three of you, I hope the viewers have enjoyed it. And I think what you've said in the end actually sort of closes the session so beautifully, because it is about inclusion, it is about innovation, and it is the use of technology of this to make it inclusive and innovative. So thank you so much for taking out the time to be with us, to share your journeys, your insight. And I'm sure Plaksha is going to be in touch with you for many, many, many years. They're building a great university. And thank you so much for your time and you sharing your stories with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, that was truly inspiring. We all are definitely walking away with make the technology person first. A big thank you to Dr. Bali, Dr. Chesney, Sairi for sharing with us snippets of the incredible work you do. One thing which we are glad about the pandemic is that it has given us the ability to bring all of you together on one screen. And that, I think, is truly special. Thank you, Radhika, for hosting the session beautifully. A big thank you to you for all the support in designing the conference and making the vision come alive. Our next session, without spending more time, is truly a unique story, which we all, as the whole team, felt that the whole world needs to know. Aryan Mishra is a 20-year-old budding astronomer who has founded Spark Astronomy, a startup that builds affordable astronomy labs in schools. He's passionate about physics and even discovered a near-Earth asteroid when he was just 14 years old. When we were naming the session, we really thought calling it Curiosity, Passion, Magic would be totally apt. And to host the session, we have with us Manmohan Gupta, who all his students dearly call Manmohan Bhaiya. Manmohan is a founder of Nagaro and has evolved from being the leading technologist to being the human resources guru. He has now more than 17 years of experience in software architecture, design, development. He's also a founder partner of Vidya Mandir classes and a founder of upcoming Plaksha University. We are truly indebted to you for being here. Over to you, Manmohan.
Yeah, thank you, Natasha, for the introduction. Guys, this is a very different session, very short one to talk to Aryan and mention something about me. So the message through this session, I would like to give it that the passion, is very important in life. And those who are able to identify their passion, especially at school level, college level, and then build over it and eventually, make it a success, are the luckiest people, I would say, on earth. So I describe it like this: there are two kind of successful people. Their journey is two kind. One is I would say the arranged marriage, where they start doing something and then they start loving it and they build over it, and then they have built companies around the whole world. And the people who kind of a love marriage, who love something, who are passionate about something, and then they're following their passion, might be a failure in the beginning, but eventually they get success out of it. So my story is about the love story kind. And Aryan, I'll talk to Aryan today, and I'm really impressed with this story, especially because I teach thousands of students every year, and in education system like India, where the path is decided by parents and by your peers, by our education system. So you could find his own story. So briefly about me, I've been into teaching since beginning because my father was a professor, and I say it runs in our family. So when I was in 11th grade, I used to teach my class. I taught vectors and three-dimensional coordinate geometry. And after that, after passing, even we started Vidya Mandir with my brothers. And I was so lucky that my brothers were always with me to guide me. So we started this Vidya Mandir classes. But apart from that, my passion was into coding. I started learning when I was in 7th grade, and when there was PCs were not out. So, and again, my brother taught me how to code that time when there was, I bought a Sinclair machine. My uncle brought it from Singapore, and then I started coding. And then after that, so I was not from computer science. I was from electrical, but I continued with my passion. I followed my passion, and that's how I became part of Nagaro. So today I would prefer not to talk about me. Like students, they keep hearing me here and there about my story. So I would love to talk to Aryan, and because his story is very inspiring. Mine was mine is quite old one, I would say. It's almost I passed college. 35 years now. Yeah. So brief introduction about Aryan, and frankly I don't know much about him, and that's what I want to do. I want to hear his story, and maybe you might get inspiration that he is involved into astronomy. And I've heard people you're involved into astronomy at maybe in a college level, or maybe after college they show interest, when they have money to buy the telescope. But his story starts from school time, which is the most difficult time to get into your passion. So thank you, Aryan, for joining us today, and thank you, Plaksha, for giving me this opportunity. Among you have a big founding team, and I'm so lucky that you invited me to host this session with Aryan. And I love to talk to students, as my life moves around students, whether it's a school students or college student. So Aryan, I read about you on internet. So it would be good that you talk about yourself. Like the students might be watching this session. So how in school time, generally people are interested into sports, or maybe playing games, or maybe making games, playing guitar. So what inspired you? Sorry, what inspired you to move into astronomy, whether it's a parent, or maybe your uncle, or maybe brothers, cousins? So some inspiring forces all should always be there.
Of course. So basically, I will start my story by telling you a very interesting thing that, whenever as a kid you open the refrigerator, your parents immediately say, don't open the fridge. And the next question which comes to your mind is like, why? Why not should I open the fridge? Why the parents are stopping? So every question, there is this WHY which comes up. Even as a kid, we used to sleep on, in summer times, we used to sleep on terrace. And I always used to think that why the stars are twinkling, why there are stars not in daytime but only in the nighttime. These curiosities led me to ask my teachers that what exactly lies beyond the solar system. And when I used to go to my maternal grandmother's house, I used to see train, and train fascinated me so much that I wanted to become a train engine driver. So the fascination always leads kids to different places. So the fascination for me, and that was just an interest to know what lies beyond the solar system. At that point of time, I didn't even knew the word called passion, or also something like this. I'm telling you, when I was 11 years old, I joined my school astronomy club, and we had an astronomy club every Friday. We used to meet, and then after that, one evening we got an opportunity of looking at Saturn through the telescope, and that was a breathtaking moment of my life. You know, that moment that made me realize, कि भैया अब यही करना है. Like, this is what you have to do it. I didn't knew how to become an astronomer. My father is a newspaper seller, and my mother is a housemaker. My father migrated to Delhi back 31 years back, around selling vegetables and everything. So I belong from a very humble background. So I'm the first person in my family who completed class 12th, and I'm the first person in my family who's going to college also. And also, I remember very well, I'm the first person around my district who has went to US also. So I come from such a background that there is not even a scope of science. So when I ask my parents, they say, "Ki beta IPS ban jayega, he will become an IPS," because that's what mindset is. You and the entire government system, you see a district magistrate only. So you feel like, no, your son will also become a district magistrate. But my fascination led to stars, just looking at Saturn and the beautiful rings of Saturn. When I saw that something which is on the books, and I saw it for the real time, it was unbelievable. And that was a time when I started, questioning my own curiosity. I started going to a cyber cafe. So there is on front of JNU, on the main entrance of JNU, you will see a hilltop cyber cafe there. And I used to go there, and I used to do all my research and all. Somehow I started this in 2011, and luckily in 2014 I discovered an asteroid between Mars and Jupiter, and everything started on a very not on a very stretched track. Like, everything was there for me, nothing like that. So I still remember my father used to beat me from belt and pipe and everything, whatever he used to get, because for his mindset was that there is no scope of astronomy. And at the end of the day, even I could not explain that what scope does astronomy has. Even I didn't know, but I still wanted
Taken
to.
a hobby. Yeah, it was taken a hobby. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how the journey started. But now the takeover was done by that asteroid discovery. And interestingly, I never had a laptop or a phone. My first laptop I I bought from my own money is this year, and my first phone is also from this year. And interestingly, what I discovered that asteroid from a cyber cafe, and that is the same cyber cafe. And next day, I was on the front page of Dainik Jagran newspaper. And that day I didn't had any tuition classes or something. So I remember my father was very much against to this obsession of stars and all. And my mother told me that you are on front of a newspaper. And I never told my family that I did something like this also. And I came in the newspaper. And when a newspaper seller kid is a newspaper, it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. So that was a point when my parents started believing in my dreams. So, when I say that, okay, show the world, you need to prove the world that you're made for it. For me, my world was my parents, that circumference of my parents, that, okay, I have to prove to my parents that I can do this. And it took me 4 years to prove that. So, yeah.
Right. When you told the Saturn, I remember that the first time I got a chance to look into the telescope was I saw the Saturn. One of my the batchmate, I went to his home in California. So he has a big telescope. He set up, and it took so much time to set up the telescope. Then he said, "It will come. The Earth will come. You will see at the end." So we got to see the Saturn rings. So the passion, I know when I talk to students, some people say they have passion in coding and all, but it's very difficult to run your passion through your high school in India. You know that because parents have that mindset. The same thing story you telling, that parents never believe that you should do something which can build your career, right? So students, they say, people have that engineering in mind. You go to IITs, you go to NITs, and you can make your career. So apart from parents, you've said, and I understand parents' point of view. They have to see the future of the kids also. So look, who supported you? Right? The passion. You are the one who pulled it through. Like your passion in your high school, or support from some uncle or friends, or like what was your the companions which moved along with you in your journey? So what keep you motivating every day when parents are like kids, they give up their passion, because when parents there's a limit to fight you can do with your parents.
Of course. So basically, I remember I got my first telescope by saving up my pocket money. So my father denied that he will not bring me a telescope. So I saved 5,000 rupees for 1.5 years. So in India, there is a very good culture. I would say that whenever you visit your grandparents' house, you get money. So I started visiting my grandparents' house quite frequently. So I could get some good amount of money and I can go and buy a telescope quickly. But still, it took me 1.5 years to. I got my first telescope. Then I started realizing that I could locate stars. I could locate. Even when I bought my first telescope, my parents stopped talking. Like they stopped talking to me for like a week. They said that "Hamara beta hamare against chale gaya." That kind of feeling.
Yes.
My son went against me only. What kind of son I am? What kind of son I have and all that normal thing. But what always driven me for this change is that I always thought upon myself that something that maybe I can do in the field of astronomy, and which is something which is, see, universe is so dark and so big that even if you devote your half of your entire life, you still can't discover a lot of things. So the fascination towards the universe was the only thing that always driven me. I still remember I used to go and I used to print Hubble Space Telescope images that I used to get from NASA and all. And that was a fascination. I used to think that how these clouds are made, how all these fascination which has always kept me together. And at the end, I would also say that not only on this journey, I never went to any special classes or special this thing. What I had support was from my school club. So school played a very major role in getting this right. So what I think is that if something is provided at the school level, even as said by even the beginning also, uh, it creates a change in the mind. That's something that I can do. If I didn't had a school astronomy club, maybe I would not be here today. So
Right.
this is important. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The school helps, because I remember when I was in 11th, 12th, and during those years, long time back, that time the course was there, the computer science course was there in the curriculum of CBSE. So my teacher told me that we have to participate in a daily level competition for some program. So they allowed me to go to the lab for year and year. They said I can miss any class because, we have to participate wherever school have to come up. So that also helped me, pursuing my interest, because school was supporting me, and it supported for almost like 2 years when I was in 11th and 12th. So like, so generally, like when you, that was your interest. When you start realizing that, you're starting getting some success, like success and failure, you want to pursue it. Because I know that you are doing physics in your college, right? You took physics as a major in your college. So what turned, one is you discovered the asteroid, it was in the news. So apart from that, when you thought it was, you can get success, you can make a career out of this, and you want to continue your studies instead of joining a typical, medical and engineering. So what was the turning moments? Which year it was when you thought you want to do it, and it just started getting success? And I know I heard that you have your startup also. You founded a company, Spark Astronomy.
Yeah. So uh, basically the main agenda, I still remember when I was in class 12th, when I got, so I will tell you also my marks. Marks are very important to tell here. In class 10th, I got, I think I got 59%, and in my class 12th, I got 64%. And I remember, still remember, after getting 64%, after a few months, I was invited by St. Stephen's College to deliver some lectures and all frequently. So I always used to tell those kids, I said, Ki, I scored 64% and I'm coming here, you scored 99% to listen to a 64% guy. So the only moral of the story is that how much time you spend with your hobby and how much time you give to your passion doesn't matter whatever your marks is. Even the reason I got into Ashoka is not because like I did this or that. The only reason is that when you have curiosity and you have that passion, I'm sure you can reach any places. Secondly, also important is that I will tell you very truthfully. So when I was applying to universities, I wanted to go to US and study, because in undergrad astronomy we can't do in India. So either we have to pursue sciences, then masters you have to do astronomy. So to pursue undergrad, I thought let's go to US and let's see. So I applied to like 9, 10, 15, 10, 11 colleges, out of which 9 out of 8, 9 I made it. And still I didn't get the amount of funding. Basically, when I say funding, it's basically I couldn't pay the amount of fees. So I thought that I thought that I already have an idea of starting a startup, Spark Astronomy, which aims at providing affordable astronomy education to kids in school. For example, in school, in club system, when you have astronomy club, you have to pay. At that point of time, when I was there, it was free. But now, since last 6, 7 years, you have to pay 12,000, 10,000 per year to enroll in that lab. In our lab, the difference is that you have to pay 60 rupees per year. That is the amount of we have created this change, and it gives an equal opportunity to everyone to explore astronomy. So the purpose of this startup was to fund my education to US.
Yeah.
But I ended up living here in India. I got into Ashoka and I'm in my second year and I'm enjoying the time. It's no regrets, actually, no regrets. But I ended up doing a better work as compared. I thought that if I have gone to US, I would not have been able to create this change as compared being sitting in the US. So I'm very excited. Like, to be honest, it's good that it didn't went. Now I realize.
So the statement you said, you got 64% in 12th, and then if you keep following your passion, and you could do something which might be greater than the people who scored 99%. That's what I keep telling the students. So maybe old time were different, when there were not too many jobs and people always wanted to get job, be secure. But now is the time that if you follow your passion and if you have an interest, and and nowadays the kids, they fight with their parents. When you're ready to challenge your parents, why not you try to follow your passion? And it doesn't matter, like you might take few more years to follow your journey, but eventually you'll be able to do it. And we can see more and more stories. Even education system has improved a lot what it was maybe 10-15 years back. Even the startups are there. It's very inspiring. Startups are coming and opportunities are there. Guidance is there. We have so many startups from Indian entrepreneur which were never there like 20 years back. So all these stories are inspiring kids. So just what plan? So you are now in Ashoka. So you left the dream, left your plan to go to abroad and study. So going forward, so what do you plan to do with your startup? You started to fund your education. So what's the plan? You will continue in college, or you will so what's the plan? Because you have to do your studies also, and maybe the higher studies also to do research and all. So you keep doing the startup along with, or what's your plan?
Basically, yeah. So basically, with the startup, we have already been implementing a lot of labs, and we have partnered with the central government also to make labs in government schools. Apart from that, my goal is to become a pilot and an astrophysicist. That's my long-term goal.
Okay.
So after finishing Shoka, my next thing is to be a pilot. Then after completing that, I want to be an astrophysicist on a longer run. With this startup is that we are trying to implement some new things. First of all is to manufacture telescopes. 90% telescopes in India are imported from different countries, mainly from China. And the telescope rates are very higher. So my startup also aims at creating a very cheaper rates telescope with the best quality optics. So I'm still working on that. That is one of the major aspects. Apart from that, astronomy labs is of course. Third is also making rockets and satellites. In a future longer run. And fourth is also providing online astronomy education. That is where I look for my startup in the next say 10 years. And completing about my education, then of course after finishing Ashoka, maybe I will take a gap of 2-3 years. Then I will continue my studies for astrophysics masters. So because I have been passionate and I really want to work towards uh, my main focus is on planetary science. That's what I do, and basically in inner solar systems, that's it. So I look at my interest is only the solar system and around it. So I've not been that hardcore Stephen Hawking thinking, black holes, not like that. So I'm basically interested in, the atmosphere and all the things, the geology of the planets and all. That's where my research area is that.
So roughly, if someone has to buy a telescope out of interest, because, so how much money you bought it for 5,000 rupees? If somebody has to buy a decent, I would say, what's the price range they have to save, or they have to ask their parents?
They can buy in 10,000 rupees.
10,000, decent telescope, right?
Decent, from which you can watch the craters on the moon, from which you can see 5 planets that you can see very clearly. So that decent one is like say 10,000. Yeah.
So how do you when you're outside, how do you know which direction you have to? Because I have a very novice question. So how do you which direction you have to point your telescope? So how do they go about it? So
yeah, so basically in night sky, what happens is that our main focus is that we look up at the stars. So we have a lot of maps, sky maps and all. Now through AI, we have multiple mobile apps. But in astronomy, we call a planisphere. In planisphere, what we do is that we locate the time and it's a star dial kind of thing. And then from there, we can watch these stars and we can make out which constellation is where. Because now I have an experience of for say 9 years. So now without even looking at the map, I know where exactly will be the planet. I know. So I will just tell you, after this conference, whenever you get free, just go and look at the southern side. You will see a very bright star, that is Jupiter, and next to it above you can watch Saturn. Or if you still can't see, I can come at your home and I can put the telescope and I'll show you.
So you will see that in the night, right? So it's dark. So the day you got okay. So I'm in Pennsylvania, but yeah, I'll wait for the night. So
done.
Yeah. So some of the questions my kids keep asking, that you don't sometimes, because my students ask question, which that's a very confusion among the students' mind when they pass their 12th grade, which even they get admission in college, which field to follow, which engineering to join, they get admission. So when I say do you know where your interest lies, they're totally confused. They don't know what to do. And then the answer I can give it, though they ask me what is there in electrical, what is there in electronics and communication, what is there in computer science, I can answer these questions. And when they ask, all of the other field, I align them with other students. But within like 10 minutes of conversation, you cannot make out what they are going to learn in that. So I just tell them, why don't you join computer science? Because I know that the placements are good, and most of the it's upcoming field, research is going on. So my kids say that, why you send everyone to computer science? Why you ask everyone to take computer science? I said, they don't know their interest, they don't know their passion. What answer can? And so for me also, my daughter, I'm the math teacher since beginning, and my daughter, she hates mathematics. So when she has to do something in a math, the very question she asked, what's the use of it? Why I have to learn all this? Tell me how it can help me in my life. So very difficult to answer. I say, engineering, I couldn't have done engineering without the math. She said, I don't want to do engineering. I want to follow my passion. She wants to do game design. So she is artist, and she plays game, and she designed, she wants to design the game character and all. So how the math will help? So I try to answer that question. So I understand everyone is not lucky to follow the passion. First, they don't know their passion. Second, the parents, they don't support them. And third, sometimes parents' economical condition is not good, that they want their kids not to suffer, they want the kid to have a so that way, my message for today, I know we are really short of time, almost we are finished with the time. So I think I'm telling you, it's a very good message to the school students, that if you follow it, remember, hobby, there's a difference between hobby and following your passion. Hobby is fine, you can play guitar, you can play sports, but making a passion is, you have to all the time, days, nights, when you're eating food, when you're taking bath, when you're doing walking, when you're talking, when you're texting, you have in the back of your mind, you have to be totally lost in your passion. And once you have that, and you cannot do it by force. You cannot make it a plan that I'll think about my passion. No, it will come from inside. And if it is coming from inside, it is your passion. So when you do it, you follow it, at least I can tell you, you will do decent in life. And apart from that, you will be most happiest person if you're following your passion. And be happy in life is the most important thing. And after spending so many years, and all my batchmates of the same age, we realize at this moment, success has, if you have to choose one, success and happiness is more important than success. So success has a role to bring your happiness, but that's something, it can be a myth also. So if you follow your passion, you will be happiest person on earth, I would say. So thank you, Aryan, for sharing your ideas. One suggestion I will do, if you're not doing, you should, to answer the queries of the students, to guide them, you should maybe record some YouTube videos, because after COVID, I've seen the kids are spending, because earlier they never had phones and laptops, but now the classes are online, school and coaching. So they spend time on phones. So the YouTube videos, if you can make, if you can guide, that will really inspire them. It will help them following the direction which you have followed in your high school, in the school time.
Yeah.
Natasha, I think we are done with the time, right?
Yes. Thank you so much, Aryan, for being here today. That was incredibly inspiring. And Manmohan, thank you for making the time to host this
Thank
session.
You so much for inviting. Yeah.
The dialogue was something we all are going to take back today. After weeks of planning and 3 amazing days with global tech leaders, Infinity 2020 has come to its last session, but the most awaited one. I would like to invite Vineet Gupta to introduce our keynote speaker for the last session. Vineet, of course, needs no introduction. He has been the guiding and driving force behind building Ashoka University and now upcoming Plaksha University. He's a first-generation entrepreneur, a leader, and a mentor to so many students and young professionals. Along with Vineet, we have Kanchi Khanna, Senior Director, Admissions and Outreach at Plaksha University. Who will be co-hosting the session with him. Kanchi has redefined career counseling for students, and her passion for education, teaching, and design reflects in everything she does. The session will be followed by the closing of Plaksha's inaugural conference, Infinity 2020. We request the audience to please stay back till the end. Over to you, Vineet.
Thank you, Natasha. And it's a real honor and pleasure to host Sonam Wangchuk today. Sonam, if you can switch on your camera. Um, I first met Sonam about maybe 3 years ago now, when I had the pleasure of listening to him at the India International Center. And I mean, I can tell you, I was so inspired. I've been in institution building for the last 15 years of my life, but when people ask me to name the one or two people who have inspired me, then Sonam is right at the top. An engineer, an innovator, a social reformer, a visionary. The words, I can go on and on, but Sonam, leads a movement, SECMOL, for transformation of education in Ladakh, uh, where I'm told that you are accepted if you fail, not if you have good grades. He's built the ice stupa for transforming the Ladakh region. And then he's now continuing his reforms in education to build a university. Sonam, real pleasure to see you. Welcome. I look forward to hearing you again, as I have many times before. Thank you so much. I know we got you out from some hard work that we were doing in the interiors of Ladakh. Sonam does spend a lot of his time in the mountains, really working with glaciers, working with people, and really deeply impacting that landscape. Sonam, welcome again, and over to you. I think the audience is waiting to hear you. And then after you are done speaking, Kanchi will have have some questions from the audience, which we can take.
Okay, thank you, Vineet. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure again to see you, Vineet, and your new creation. Yeah, I had to jiggle a few things to be here, but I'm happy that I was able to, and look forward to speaking to many young people, I'm told, teenagers upwards. So it's always a pleasure to share a bit of my life and my journey with them. And you have kept a title like Creating a World of Creators. Beautiful. That's what the aim of education should be. In our part of the Ladakh, it has been, as you just mentioned, even more interesting when you do that with the kids who are otherwise called failures, who are good for nothing, who are rejected. And if they become creators, it's a beautiful world indeed. So because we have not so much time, so I'll start sharing a little bit of our journey with this school and how the students, while applying what they learn in schools, learn to solve problems of the people of a very difficult region otherwise. And it is in applying things that they become simpler, that they become memorable and unforgettable. Like we are often asked to not forget our lessons. I always say, but the lessons are so forgettable. If we are to just memorize, formulae, they're so forgettable. How can we not forget them? So I'll share a bit of the story of how we tried it with the so-called failures who are, of course, accused of forgetting all the times and not getting it right. So I'll take the help of some images and share a little bit of these stories from the mountains of Ladakh. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Okay. Just a minute. Can you see my screen? Yeah.
I think it's coming on. Natasha, can some of you?
You can
Maybe you can try resharing it
give
once.
permission.
We can see. Yeah, now we can.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Okay. Since we are talking about a different kind of world, mountains, when you're talking of mountains, they come close to being on another planet while being Earth. So I should take the help of some images to speak more than my 1,000 words. So if you see, let's see where I come from. This is Ladakh in the top north of India. Now it is a union territory. So you should know it as one of the new UTs of India. And very different indeed from the place you come from, as you can see. It's a mountain desert across the Himalayas, so high that even the mountain clouds find it difficult to cross them. Therefore, of the is actually a desert, because clouds can't cross them, and therefore they're at rain shadow. And it's so high up. The city where I am is 11,500 feet up in the sky. So the temperatures in winter are up -35. In summer, they can be up to +35. And if you see, it is more like a moonscape than a landscape. People would think if they approach Ladakh that it is inhabitable. Moon, a Mars land. This image, by the way, is of Mars. It's not Earth. Just to tickle you and to give you an idea of how different Ladakh is and how much closer it is to the Mars than to Mumbai or Delhi. This is Ladakh. You can see how similar to that landscape or Marscape it is. What is different here, if you look carefully, is the green patches, which is what our ancestors did to this otherwise inhabitable place. They mastered the art of leading the melting glaciers to flat deserts and then growing trees and crops like wheat, fruits like apricots, apples, pears. Nothing but melting glaciers, because rain we hardly have here. It's desert.
Sonam, your voice is breaking a bit. Your voice is breaking a bit. Maybe you can switch off your video and then it will be clear.
No, wait. Yeah, you can switch off my video by trying the position of the transmitter. Yeah? Just 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay, tell me if it is a little better. Is it? Can you hear me?
It's better. It's better.
Hello. Yeah?
Yes, Sonam, it's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying how it is very different from the rest of the country, up in the mountains, in a desert, that too very cold. Polar it is called, like the third pole after north and south. So life is very different, yet there is a colorful civilization that has thrived here with its own language, literature, music, dance, and a lifestyle in perfect harmony with nature. But because we are a tiny minority, everything becomes very difficult when we are shunted or connected with the rest of the tropical India. Education, for example, stops making sense when you just take the same books and same lessons from tropical hot Delhi or Mumbai to 11,500 feet. So they become so irrelevant that children fail in their thousands in Ladakh. So when I was doing my engineering, I came face to face with this situation. I saw that my fellow Ladakhi students were failing en masse. Thousands would fail every year. And why not fail? You know, a 6-year-old Ladakhi child who only speaks Ladakhi at home was made to read and write in Urdu, Hindi, or English, and about things that totally don't make sense. I always give this example that when you are in a -30 winter school, F for fan doesn't make any sense. Yeah, A for apple may, but F for fan for children who are trying hard to keep warm does not make sense. And the books are full of these. So they used to fail, so many of them. I came across this situation because I started teaching when I was doing my engineering. I had to support my engineering expenditure, the fee. And for that, I started teaching the students at home in Ladakh. And not at home, but I opened a coaching center as a 19-year-old. And that became a huge success because I could teach in the ways that they learned, even if schools didn't do that. The students did very well, and I earned a lot of money to cover all my engineering studies. But this brought me face to face with the problems of the education system, and it changed my life from a passion for engineering. To be precise, light and optics was my reason for doing engineering. But very soon I saw that there are more important things I need to do. Because I always say in life, it's not just about what I need, but also what needs me. So while teaching, I realized that these children who were otherwise rejected as failures were actually so bright, could understand all the theories in physics, in chemistry, maths, if taught the way they understand. So I said I would rather change the education system than play with light rays for the time being. I can always get back to my engineering. So I went back to Ladakh and started a movement to change the education system. This was an interesting movement of organizing village people to demand quality education, because in a democracy, until the people demand, leaders do not, give what needs to be changed in society. So changing people's priorities was a very important factor. So from an engineering world, I came in this social engineering kind of, or sociology related, transformation in society among people. Then I had to become curriculum designer and a publisher. You will see on the right, we had to do away with all the textbooks that made no sense in the mountains. We redid the textbooks and published new textbooks with the government in partnership. Then we had to become teacher trainers, because the teachers were not trained enough to teach in interesting ways all the sciences and maths. So we started training thousands of teachers in all government schools all through Ladakh. So this was a movement to change the system. And yes, when you start acting, then impossible things start becoming possible. So I told you 5% only used to pass in the 10th grade exams. 95% would fail. Very soon, the results started changing from 5% consistently every year to 7, 23, 36. And slowly it came up to 75% pass. So this was the part where I sort of dedicated my early life to bring reforms in education. But yes, side by side, I was doing my engineering, not as a profession to earn money, but as a passion to solve challenges and problems, which I got to use in very interesting ways now after this phase, when what we could do with the system was done. And still there were some students failing. As you can see, 75% pass is good, but 25 is still a big number to be failing. So for these people who were still failing, we said no one is a failure. You know, why should anybody, after spending 15 years in schools, be declared a failure? If we don't learn the way you teach, then teach us the way we learn, is what the children were in a way telling us. So we did an interesting experiment which led to a world of creators, as you will see, from among those who were otherwise rejected. So in 94, we went to a completely middle of nowhere desert, like you see on the screen, with a batch of so-called failures, 15 or so 10th grade failures, and 5 or 6 of us who were teachers and mentors and guides. And we camped at this desert by the Indus River that you can see. We wanted to create a school that was different from the rest, that would do more justice to these people who the schools had not done justice, who kept getting rejected. And in the next 5 or so years, we had created an interesting school, which, to begin with, was a school where admission criteria, yes, was not percentage or marks, but rather that you have failed in the system, because it was for them that we wanted to create this school. And secondly, this was also a school which would develop in nature friendly ways without harming the environment. So this school was completely run by solar power. Back in 96, it was a zero energy off grid institution when these terms were not even coined. Today we hear of many schools claiming that we were the first and so on, but anyway, it doesn't matter. And this school was not only powered by sun for all the heating in polar winters of Ladakh and all the electricity, but it was built with natural building materials like mud or earth right under our feet. Everybody has earth, it is not unaffordable for the poor. Nobody is so poor they don't have soil under their feet. Nobody is so poor they don't have sun over their head. So solar energy and earth from under the feet created this school and created an example of what is possible. So this is a school, very interesting that it is run by the students themselves, because we wanted these students, these very special students, to learn by living their lessons, not just learning and memorizing their lessons. So they run the school themselves like a little country with a little parliament and a little government, little elections, and that's their political science or civics, panchayats, state assemblies, parliaments, all that they would live by running the school as a little country. They would take responsibilities as elected leaders. They would take, for example, the Ministry of Dairy and Forestry and take care of all the cows. Others would take care of energy and solar energy. Others would take care of gardening and local production, solar power plant, greenhouse system, and so on. But at the same time, they would apply what they learned in their lessons into the real life. And you can see they would get into applying solar and energy lessons from their school or beyond, to whether it is cooking, whether it is growing vegetables in winter, natural lighting, solar electricity, water heating, water pumping, and even solar cow sheds, so that the cows also stay in warm sheds in Ladakhi winters, not just people. And peer teaching one another would be given high importance, because when we teach someone, we are the most benefiting side, because we don't learn something until we have taught somebody. So that's why we encourage peer teaching and applying. For example, here you can see making jam, or running a television channel or a radio station for this little country. The students do it all and they learn through experience. Now, some of them then go on to create their own companies that would take on the lessons to entrepreneurship. So those who were learning to make jam would start jam companies or pulp companies that would actually supply to companies around the country. Others would run travel companies. Like you can see, a very famous women's travel company came up, which is globally famous today. Others would add value to the products from their own region, like yak cheese. So young people who were otherwise rejects start creating their own startups and apply what they learn at school and in life. Similarly, companies come up started by the students who start building solar buildings like the school that they grew up at for people outside who, of course, want these technologies in a cold place like Ladakh. So construction companies that deliver on-call, design and build solar buildings. And it's very simple. How they learn is at the school where they see the application of their physics classes or chapters from 8th or 9th grade. For example, heat. You can see this building. It has a greenhouse coverage here, plastic greenhouse, transparent. In the winter, it comes down. And you can see down here how in the greenhouse, due to the sun's rays, the air gets heated, and hot air, as you would have studied, is lighter, therefore rises, enters the windows upstairs into the house. It heats the walls and becomes cool itself, and therefore heavy sinks down, is pushed into the greenhouse, again is heated by the sun, and the cycle moves all through the day, and it's called convection cycle, straight from the chapter on heat in your 9th grade. So convection is not just something to memorize, it becomes something that makes your world more comfortable by heating your building. Same with conduction from the south surface of the walls, which the sun hits, and then particle by particle, the heat comes into the room. And at night, when windows are closed, the walls that are heated by convection of air and conduction of heat through them now start radiating inwards and keeps people warm. So conduction, convection, radiation actually becomes a living experience. And you can see above that the walls of the building are built by ancient, time-tested, old traditional ways. We don't have to throw away old and ancient wisdom when we adopt something new like science of thermodynamics or heat science. So it's a beautiful blend of traditional wisdom and modern science that gives you buildings that stay at plus 18 when it is minus 18 outside. So these students become value creators who make value from thin air. All you have to do to get to use this solar energy is orient your buildings to the south, and it doesn't cost any more money to orient to the south, and little fiddling with the design, and for the same cost of a building you get a building that doesn't need any heating in cold polar winters of Ladakh. Okay, it's not moving. Hello, can you see my slide still?
We can see.
Yeah, but I seem to have got fixed with this slide. Oh. Has the slide changed there or not? Is it the same heating cycle?
Yes. Natasha, you can see a different one.
Okay.
It's the same one. It's the same one. Right now.
Okay, I'll stop sharing here. Okay, now it might change. There's something that got fixed here.
Or you can stop sharing and share. Maybe that will help.
Yes. Okay. Just a minute. Something going on here. Is it sharing now?
It's showing up. I think it should show up in.
Yeah, but it's not changing the slides, strangely.
It's showing up now, but it's the same slide. Let's see if it changes.
Yes. Okay, I'll stop sharing for a few minutes and then we'll do it again.
Okay.
It seems it has some issues. Okay, can you see me now? I have stopped sharing.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, let me check what is wrong with it. Okay, anyway, I think it'll work very soon. So these are techniques of heating in cold Ladakhi winters, and you would understand why. Just as you would need to cool buildings in hot summers of Delhi or Mumbai, in Ladakh it's the direct inverse, and our headache is to heat up, warm up buildings or make ourselves comfortable in winters. But what we discovered is that it's not just through techniques of heating, definitely not through gadgets and machines, but even solar energy alone is not enough to make your winters colorful. So you need something more, especially when you want to make your life more interesting for young people. So, and it is very out of box. You would only think of normally, for a cold place like Ladakh, you would think of how to heat in winters to become more comfortable. And sure enough, people concentrate on that. Others leave Ladakh when it is winter, they go to Goa and other places. And some 15 years ago, we said, why not make the winters more colorful and fun? Even if they are cold, they can be very attractive and interesting. So we said, how about winter sports that can make our lives more interesting? And talking of winter sports, I hope the images work here, because these are sports that many of you may never have seen anywhere. So we started thinking of oh, ice sports. Ice hockey, for example, is a very interesting sport that is played all over the cold countries of the world. But in Delhi and Mumbai, of course, you wouldn't know. So we thought that rather than only using technology and money to heat buildings, how about using sports to make winters something to look forward. So that's when at our school we started using again. Just a minute, I'll try to fix this. There's something strange going on. Can you still see my screen or not?
No, not yet, Sonam. Maybe you want to change the slide on your laptop or your machine and then share.
Yeah, there's some strange thing happening. That's what it is not allowing me to do. Just a minute. It's going a bit crazy here. I'm trying to show you some images of ice hockey and ice stupas. Only if this stops behaving like it is doing right now. Hello. Can I reconnect perhaps?
Sure, if you think that helps, Sonam.
Let me check. Sorry about this. I'll try once more if it can do something without having to, yeah. Okay, now you can continue seeing me, right?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Yes, we can see a different slide now.
okay, you can.
Yes.
Okay, you can see these slides?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so before coming to ICE, I was talking about how these student startups build for clients. And these are some buildings that are ultra modern and stay at +18 in winters, and no pollution. And just because they're earth buildings, like often we think mud buildings are primitive, they can actually be very nice taste interiors. So these are things that our students start creating, a world of creators, as you say, and then scaling it up to where many of our students are working to solve the problem of this pollution that you see in late town in the winters. You can see all the smog. Can you? Like Delhi sees in November, October, we see in December, January, when people start burning anything and all kinds of fossil fuels to heat up. So the city becomes like this. But now more and more solar buildings are being built for the military, for high-end resorts and homes and all sections of society. So slowly we hope to solve the challenge of cold, discomfort, and the pollution and other challenges that come up. So I was saying, but heating alone is not a solution. You can make winters colorful for the young people by other means also, and this is one of them. Can you see the image? This is ice hockey. Ice hockey is a very interesting sport in Ladakh. It's the national sport of Ladakh, you can say. Everywhere people are playing ice hockey, and young people look up to winters. Even if it is cold, they don't mind because they get to play. So it's also these things that makes a problem solved, not just heating and insulation and kilowatts alone. Life is much more than all these things. But we saw some problem back 15 years ago, that this sport was only for men. There were no women. Women had no place in this. And very soon we discovered that that was because the game was played on frozen ponds and reservoirs, large reservoirs, which are often not conveniently located in the city. So girls found it inconvenient to travel and be back home in the evenings, so they wouldn't even play. Once again, at our school, we started working to see if we can create an ice hockey rink without a pond or reservoir. Till then, people thought they could only be done on reservoirs and ponds. So we said, why not make an ice rink on plain flat ground? And sure enough, we created an ice hockey rink at our school right outside the girls' hostel, using a little bit of science of reflection of sun rays using lime and other colors. and some shading. And what we got was perhaps India's largest open air ice rink right outside the girls' hostel. And the girls could only jump out from their rooms or bedrooms on the ice, and they started playing. And they started playing in the school. Then inter-school, we helped other schools to develop this game, and then interstate. And finally, within few years, they started representing India as India's national women's ice hockey team in different countries of the world. These are these students who came a few years back as failures, but then they become, national champions for the country. So science and innovation can do amazing things to give opportunities to otherwise, suppressed genders, and to make winters, above all, more colorful and more fun. Now, talking of ice, a little bit of ice stupa. I won't take you too far because I think we lost a bit of time in this problem. So ice stupas, there's a lot of material on the internet, so you can log on and see more. Just suffice to say that as natural glaciers are melting away, we are having to make man-made glaciers for our early spring water crisis. So as natural glaciers are melting away, there is a crisis in spring, in May and April, when farmers really need the most water. But other than that, in July, August, there's a lot of water as big glaciers melt, the natural ones. And then that flow remains till winter. In November, December, January, when nobody farms, there's still water flowing in the streams. So we said, why not freeze it in winter and keep it till late spring? And to keep it till late spring, you have to use geometry, again from your middle school geometry, using shapes that have low surface area for the given volume. You would know that spheres, hemispheres, and cones have low surface area. Therefore, the sun cannot melt it early in March, which is what most flat ice on the ground melts and is not available in April or May. So we started making these conical ice cones, pyramids, by just using gravity to bring water down, and gravity will power it so that there is a fountain splashing water in -20 air. I don't have much time. You can watch other videos. And naturally, it takes shape on, and the shape, as I said, doesn't let it melt early. And this stupa that you are seeing was 6 stories tall, the first prototype, and contained 1 million liters of water, 10 lakh liters of water. And it would slowly melt into May and June. You can see the end of an ice stupa as it melts away. But as it melts away, its water is collected. In the winter, it is made, and in spring, it melts, and the water is collected in tanks. Then it can be drip irrigated to plants on a desert where there are no plants otherwise. Here you can see in this village, 5,000 trees were planted by the villagers on a desert that has seen no greenery ever. And thanks to this ice stupa, keeping it alive in April and May, because after July, there is natural stream water. So it makes it possible to green the deserts. Now it is becoming like a movement with village after village making their own ice stupas, and competitions with prizes in Ladakh and outside in Switzerland and other European countries. People are making ice stupas. The one on the left is half the height of the Qutub Minar and contains 70 lakh liters of water. And this innovation got us the Rolex Award a few years ago. But we don't really take pride in these solutions. So there is a big but, and I will not go into that big but. I'll come back to this big but in the very end in few minutes. I'll open it for question answers right at present, because we have spoken for a long time now. So over to you for any questions and answers, really.
Prachi will go ahead and moderate this.
Sonam, thank you. Thank you for sharing those amazing things that you and your students are doing and the challenges which we would have never imagined that you faced. I have with me a set of super bright students from across the country who've been waiting very eagerly to ask you questions. So I'm going to ask them to, come on screen and then ask their questions themselves. So first up is Anayana. She's from Ahmedabad and she describes herself as an ambitious writer. Anayana, please go ahead and ask.
Maybe we could move on to the next. I think she's facing some issues.
Arjun, is Arjun there? Arjun from Gurgaon. He's a passionate coder and an avid reader. Arjun could ask his question first. Not there as well? Have the students?
Yeah, Aryan is there. Ekam Jyot is there.
Aryan, would you like to go ahead? Aryan describes himself as a science explorer.
Sure. It's for some reason not allowing me to turn on my video.
No worries, please go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, sir. So my question to you is, India's bigger challenge is to provide quality education in the remote rural areas of the country. So can the model of SETMOL help like providing a solution? And if so, how can we implement it?
Okay. First of all, I think India's challenge is not just providing education in the remote rural, but in the urban, lower income and in the villages around the country. Our government school system is really sad for one reason. Even the private ones are sad for another reason of not making it experiential and practical. But in most parts of the country, it's just books and hardly anything else than a classroom and a book. So I think it is for most of the country, and actually don't think that remote rural ones are in sad state. Delhi is fine. I think New York is also equally facing challenges in making education any meaningful. So it should be for all places, from London to New York to New Delhi to Ladakh, that we have to make education more meaningful, more applied, more real life. Yeah, I always give this funny example. Our current system is such, whether in New York or in New Delhi or in remote Ladakh, where if you want to teach some students to make tea, you would just be made to memorize: first boil the water, then put the tea leaves, then put the sugar, and then milk, and your tea is ready. This is what you will memorize 50 times and then write in the exams and get 10 out of 10. But you cannot make a cup of tea. When the time comes to make a cup of tea, you don't know what is sugar, what is salt, where's the tea leaves. Yeah. And the student who can make a fine cup of tea may get 0 out of 10 in the current system, whether in New York or New Delhi, if they cannot write on paper how to make tea. So our education is paper knowledge, paper exams, paper degrees, which are not useful in life. So don't think it is only remote regions. Actually, I think remote regions are lucky. They still make their own tea. At home, they learn to make the tea, so they don't have to care about what the textbook says. It is you in the cities who are at the worst end of the thing, where you really have no real life in your flats and in your city, urban colonies. And then the schools have no life. So you don't get life anywhere, either at school or at home. The remote children actually get a very rich life on their farms, in the mountains. So we need to change everywhere. Because why I'm saying is, if we think that it's all right in New Delhi, then we may not want to change it just for the remote children. I want to say that for every child, from that of the ministers to those of the farmers, need a change in education.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Next up, we have Ekam Jyot. Ekam is from Chandigarh, and she would like to ask a question.
Yes, sir. So my question for you would be that what is that one sole thing that you would like to change or create in the world? And also, who was your biggest inspiration to actually embark upon this journey that you've undertaken to revolutionize education in itself?
There's no such one sole thing, but yes, I think education is the key to so many things. And not only so we can make better computers and better robots and better aeroplanes, but also to understand the futility of all these. Your aeroplanes will be of no good, your computers will be of no use, the robots will be of no use if we continue to make a mess of the planet as we are doing. Then entire human race, along with so many other species, will completely go extinct. So to understand, not just master these technologies, but to understand the wisdom of how to use them and how not to use them, even more important, how not to use them, comes from a very sound education system based on wisdom, not just of knowing and doing. You can produce green horses and blue sheep. That's not something so miraculous. What is more important is to see that it's not important to create blue sheep and goats. It's more important to solve people's problems and use science for good impact for everyone, where half the wildlife is not wiped out. I don't know if you know, on the current trend of using science and technology only for human comfort without any consideration for anything else, we have wiped out half the wildlife from the planet in just 50 years. So even to understand not to do that, you need good education. So that's what I would say. I don't have a single inspiration. I try to not have one, pin all my hopes or put all my eggs in one basket. It's risky, it's dangerous to do that. I draw inspiration from so many people, otherwise not famous or known or so, but for their qualities. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Karthik from Bangalore, he's a spirited programmer. Karthik, please, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. I was just wondering if it's feasible to implement what you've done to higher level education, maybe colleges and universities, and how can we create IIT level universities or institutions in India which have more holistic approach to the curriculum and admissions and not just top 1% in JEE or something like that?
Yeah, so I hope it's relevant, but we are actually doing exactly that right now, and I hope that the effort on the part of Plaksha is to do something similar. There is a need to make higher education also experiential. So from after the school, we are now working on making an alternative university where young people in their 20s, can do even more bigger magic when they can apply what they learn to solve problems. So here we at this alternative university called Himalayan Institute of Alternatives. For example, if we have tourism course, then the students get to participate in setting up homestays or hotels and make them run. And the income from that actually pays their fees, and they don't have to pay any money. Yeah, because their effort and their creativity can pay for that. For example, students learning solar energy, they can design and create buildings, and that they can learn on the job, and that creates value for the university, so you don't have to charge them money. So when you don't have to charge them money, then it makes it more democratic, not just for 1%, but so many others can. And why only 1% right now get into things like engineering and so on is not because engineering is tough, I feel that it is because we have a warped mentality that where out of 100 only 5 should become engineers in a normal healthy society, for example. Here we have a society where 100% wants to become engineer. Then it becomes something only top 5% can get to do. So we need to change that warped mentality to respect everything else. It should be so respectful to become a carpenter, to become a gardener, to become a a dress designer and so on. If people were equal and did not have this caste system on jobs and professions also, then everybody would go in where they fit best, and only 5 would be left for engineering. So then it won't be for top 1%, it would be for those who want to become engineers. So what? Engineering is engineering, just like carpentry, just like forestry or agriculture. A farmer and an engineer should have the same status. That's when there won't be a artificial crowd at the gates of engineering colleges. So it has to do with that also.
Thank you, sir.
Sonam, I know it's been a long session, but there are just a couple of more students who've been waiting. So I'll quickly call Soumya.
Okay.
Soumya, go ahead and ask your question.
And
okay,
keep
so
3 minutes for something at the end that I would like to finally add. Yeah? Okay. Yes, Soumya.
Okay. Good evening, sir. So, as we all know that failure is the first step of success, and at one point of life, we all have to face it. So, was there a point in your life when you felt as giving up? And if yes, what motivated you to start once again?
Oh, well, yeah, that's how it started. As a little child, I had a very, very tough childhood because I didn't go to school till 9 years of age, and suddenly I was sent in schools where they spoke in English and Hindi. I didn't speak a word of, so it was really rough for me. That was a time when I wanted to give up on life itself. I used to think of suicide a lot. And then somehow I thought, I don't want to live anymore, but maybe I should stop living for myself and start living to do something for others like myself, so that it would be a better world for not just me but for others also. And that changed a lot of things for me. Ever since then, I've taken life smiling, because I thought that I wouldn't have even lived. So if I'm living, then let me take things, whatever ups or downs that come. So yes, it started with a difficult time, but after that I took challenges and difficult times as a part of the game. You start expecting them from the beginning. You don't expect just roses, you expect thorns with roses. Then you are not surprised when they come. So then it is not as painful. Not after my childhood, I had other times when I felt like giving up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Soumya.
Okay.
Up next, we have Mudit.
Welcome.
Mudit, go ahead, please.
Good evening, sir. We all have our eureka moments, some big, some small. What was your eureka moment? Was it only one? Do you have many of these eureka moments throughout your journey?
Every morning at 4 or 5 a.m. I have eureka moments that doesn't let me sleep. So it's very, very frequent. And if I get up in the night, it's a very hard thing for me to go to bed again, because I'm full of these long awaited answers. So yeah, there's no such big one-time thing, but big and small ideas keep coming, and of them some take real life and shape. and become solutions. Some turn out to be laughable things the next day. So yeah.
Thank you, Sonam. Thank you so much. And you wanted to finish the session with something. Please go ahead.
Yes, I was saying to my young friends that we did these artificial glaciers and things. You would think they are great, but I have my but to that. Can you see my screen?
It's starting. Yes, we
Yeah.
can now.
So, yeah. So what we started thinking was that we may make many such inventions, but they are nothing big. We cannot solve the water crisis of the farmers for long by just making these cones of ice. As long as people in the big cities, like yourselves in Delhi, Mumbai, New York, London, as long as people around the world keep living a lifestyle that is so consumeristic, so much material, you want to have 10 pairs of shoes, 3 houses, 5 cars. That life is what causes our glaciers to melt. So our ice stupas cannot really solve our problems. So along with finding local solutions, we started thinking that there should be a global responsibility as well. And for that reason, last year at Gandhi Jayanti, we started. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, Sonam.
Okay, so we started a movement called the I Live Simply movement. And of course, Gandhi ji was the one who said, live simply so that others may simply live. So we started a movement of pledges. And for young people to participate, we made it into a fun thing by starting a crowdfunding campaign. Now, in crowdfunding, you know that people pay 500, 5,000 rupees for a cause. This is an interesting campaign of crowdfunding where you do not pay money because the planet does not need money. It needs behavior change of people living in big cities who, because of their polluting lifestyle, cause greenhouse gases, global warming, and then we have melting glaciers, sea level rise, and so on. So we started an interesting game called I Live Simply on ilivesimply.org, and I would like you to visit there. And that's where you can contribute for the planet thousands of dollars without, even if you don't have a rupee in your pocket. You pledge, and your pledge is equivalent to lots of rupees. For example, if you say, I will plant trees. Now, planting a tree is like $100 for the environment. So by just planting trees, you're contributing $100. If you say, I'll not take the car to my school or college, I'll take a bicycle all year round, that will be like $1,000. I'll go vegetarian. Compared to meat, vegetarian dishes are so eco-friendly. So that would be like $3,000. You say, I will not buy cheap Chinese products that break down and then they make a landfill or go and kill fishes in the ocean. I'll buy only local products. That's like $1,000 of contribution. So it's a crowdfunding campaign where you can pay without money, but by changing your lifestyle. Now, this is what is also the dakshina that I expect from you all to pay. Normally, my talks cost roughly 10 lakh rupees for a talk, but this is a very special one for Plaksha, especially for my friend Vineet and all of you. So you can do the dakshina in pledges for the planet. And by New Year this year, we can make a global movement from India that can change the world. So this can be an Indian movement that makes the people around the world behave in such a way that they don't kill half the wildlife, half the forests, and make the planet unlivable, starting with us in the mountains and those at the sea levels. So this is what I wanted to tell you, that we are not proud of our little solutions like solar buildings and ice stupas. We'll be more proud when you all make our cities more behaved and less of a problem for the planet. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonam. You know, I've heard you a few times now, but every time it is so inspiring. And I think your messages, I totally resonate with what you said. I think the sort of education you are promoting, the innovations you are promoting, we all in cities need to practice it far more to try to make this world a better place. I think your message of learn technology to understand where not to use it, I think it's a very powerful message, right? I'm hoping that I will visit Ladakh soon. We do hope when Plaksha opens, you will come and visit us. We will see if we can do something together. Your messages of experiential learning, I mean, you know, I always get inspired, Sonam, and you should know you will always have our support, whatever you do. My trip is long overdue, so we will make that happen. And look forward to seeing you when things open up and you can come.
Thank you.
But I'm deeply grateful. I know your schedule. I know what sort of work you do to take out this time. I really from, you know, from the core of my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, all of you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Hope to see you all at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, that was a befitting end to Infinity 2020. We are now closing. Before we end, we've had a lovely audience, great participation, and I think Sonam's session in the end sort of was the cherry on the cake. Before we close, I quickly wanted to tell you that Plaksha is starting next year, and we are opening up admissions in a week from now. We, in the undergraduate, I understand a lot of students here are in school and maybe aspiring to an education in engineering. And if Natasha, you can turn the slide, I do want to mention the 4 degrees we are starting. The first one in computer science and artificial intelligence. The second one in robotics and cyber physical systems. This is extremely contemporary at the intersection of mechanical, electrical, and computer science. It has elements of robotics, autonomous systems, Internet of Things, sensors, all technologies which are very relevant, and you know, most problems that we see around us have solutions in these technologies. The third, also one of my favorites, biological systems engineering. And I think COVID era has taught us that a lot of innovation, a lot of discovery in the 21st century is going to be at the intersection of biology, data science, and engineering. So quantitative and systems biology, fundamentals of modeling. So very interesting 4-year degree program. And the last one, again, which is extremely contemporary, you know, technology is shaping businesses, technology is shaping society. So a degree at the intersection of computer science, data science, business, and economics. So 4 exciting degrees. Admissions open in a week, and Kanchi will probably take another 2 minutes to tell you when we open and what we are looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vineet. And like Vineet said, this was our big announcement that we are going to open admissions for our undergraduate program in the last week of this month, that is October 2020, for the batch that will join in August 2021. But before we talk about the process, I would like to speak a little bit about what we're exactly looking for. An incoming student at Plaksha should demonstrate academic rigor in their understanding of concepts of physics and mathematics, but also a natural tendency to ask questions, to explore concepts, and to be open to learning. They should also be open to taking risks and learning from these challenges, experimentation, and have a bent towards creating impact. They should have great communication skills. We're really looking for students who enjoy being challenged. That said, the process itself is very comprehensive. It's a 2-stage holistic admissions process. We will be considering your academic backgrounds as well as your pursuits and interests outside the classroom. So besides academic ability, we're looking at your attitude, your creativity, and demonstration of excellence in any field. Admissions will be conducted over 4 rounds, starting October up till June 2021. You may apply in any one of those rounds. The application form will be available on our website. So to all the aspiring students in the audience, go ahead and start your application as soon as you're ready. The whole process will also be given on the website. I'm not going to spend time on that. I know it's dinner time already. So Vineet, let's go ahead and thank everyone and then close this session.
I did want to add to what Kanchi said, that Plaksha, and some of you do know Ashoka, I've been a founder there, is very liberal on scholarships, lots of full scholarships, partial scholarships. Your ability to pay will not let you not attend Plaksha. So extremely liberal. We are looking for curious minds. We are looking for tinkerers. We are looking for students who have an aspiration to change the world and make it a better place. Infinity 2020 has been great fun. It's been a real honor and privilege to host you, chat with you. We've got so many messages of the last 3 days from school principals, educators, students. I want to thank every speaker, but more than that, I also want to thank the Plaksha team who's worked tirelessly under Kanchi's leadership, particularly Natasha, Sanat, Dhani, Mudit, who has been helping us. Sovan, and anyone else I may have forgotten, but Sanat, of course.
The organizing students, the committee students. Yeah.
It's been wonderful to have all of you together in this journey. We will keep meeting. We will keep bringing you inspiring stories. Thanks, Manmohan.
Thank you. Amazing.
You should know that our session also had the highest viewership. So thank you for doing this. And thank you for being a co-traveler at Plaksha. Thanks to all our speakers and thanks to a wonderful audience. We will be back soon with some more offerings. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Before we go, we have a final poll for everyone. So Shovan, if you could please get the poll. Let's see what the answers come out of it. So how many global problems can technology solve? And your 2 options are 0 and infinite. And we are glad to see that most of you believe with us in the mission on infinity and the infinite possibilities after with technology. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone. Okay, bye.